Chapter 523. At the mention of her identity, Aku frowned and stopped in her tracks. In terms of identity, she was the daughter of the chief of the vampires in the outside world, so she was naturally noble. However, as the daughter of the chief, she wasn't welcomed in the clan because Aku's mother was a human. 18 years ago, when the chief of the vampires massacred a city, he accidentally had an indescribable physical conflict with a human woman. On the day she gave birth to Aku, she was sentenced to death by the vampires. In other words, half of Aku's bloodline was that of the vampires, while the other half was that of the human race. Even though she was the daughter of the chief, in the eyes of her own kind, they still looked down on her and even ridiculed her. Since childhood, she didn't even have a playmate or a friend. As for bloodline descendants, they were more or less the same as slaves and were divided into several grades. If the chief of the vampires bit a human, the person bitten would become the chief's bloodline descendant and be transformed into a low-level vampire. During the transformation process, the chief could also bestow the other party with the rank of a blood slave according to their aptitude. For a human with good aptitude, he would not hesitate to consume his own cultivation to make the other party a rank lower than his own. For example, if the chief was a king stage powerhouse, the person he bit would obtain the strength of a heaven sage. If the chief was a heaven sage, he would be able to bite a profound sage. If the human's aptitude was too poor and they were just ordinary people, he could just casually bite them and turn them into the lowest level of lackey, just like the walking corpses in the wasteland. They would be completely puppets without the slightest bit of self-consciousness. Aku was quite satisfied with Qin Hao's performance. Whether it was in terms of strength or insight, she could see that this youth was extraordinary. Moreover, when Aku and Duguji were getting close, she had inadvertently hurt Qin Hao, which made her feel somewhat guilty. She decided to consume her own cultivation and cultivate Qin Hao into a high-level bloodline descendant. Not only would it allow Qin Hao to maintain his intelligence, but he would also immediately obtain the strength of a profound sage. After all, Aku was a heaven sage powerhouse. Therefore, for Qin Hao, it could be considered an incomparable honor. I'm not a pure vampire and have half-human bloodline. In fact, I don't want to hurt innocent people, so I'll just treat it as compensation for him. In particular, it's inconceivable that this kid could survive the explosion. Aku nodded and muttered to herself. Then, her small face fell and she looked seriously at Qin Hao. Why are you talking so much nonsense? In short, if you let this lady bite you, you'll immediately know what a blood descendant is. Don't worry, it won't hurt. As he spoke, his figure turned into an afterimage and rushed forward, intending to grab Qin Hao. Water wind steps. Qin Hao raised his origin chi and slid out, almost brushing past Aku. He could even smell the fragrance of Aku's body. Aku's attack missed, and he was once again surprised by Qin Hao's performance. She turned around and looked at the young man in surprise. Even though he did not use his full strength just now, taking down a mere mortal saint kid was not a problem. Qin Hao actually dodged it. You're not bad, kid. Aku smiled appreciatively. At this moment, she was still in her vampire form. Her eyes were as red as blood, and her smile was very frightening. I've decided. You must be my blood descendant. She pointed at Qin Hao and said with a surprised expression, as if she had found a very valuable prey. Speaking of which, she still did not have a blood descendant of her own. This lady, even though the other races and humans have been at odds since ancient times, I have not done anything to harm or offend you. I even created opportunities for you to get close to your target. Why do you bite me so often? If you want to bite me, you should bite your target. Qin Hao's meaning was for Aku to find Duguji. You think I don't want to? Aku was so angry that she stomped her feet. She and third elder grandfather had planned for a long time and finally found out that Duguji's second young master was passing by Nanshui City. He had wanted to take a bite out of Duguji and turn him into an obedient lackey. Therefore, relying on Aku's half-human bloodline, she could change between a vampire and a human. She could deceive Dugufeng and enter the transfer team. In the end, when she arrived at her target, that bastard Duguji was wearing a treasured armor, which was at least a mid-grade sacred tool. Aku's teeth couldn't move. What was even more infuriating was that, after the explosion, Duguji used the Dugu family's secret technique and ran away like a rabbit. Aku's mission had failed, so she was very disappointed. She had planned for a long time. Fortunately, Qin Hao's performance was not bad. This lady was very satisfied. It could be considered an unexpected surprise. Qin Hao could not help but roll his eyes. He had become Duguji's sacrifice for no reason. "Do you really think you can take me down?" Qin Hao took a stance. How could the Grand Dendi be a blood slave to a little girl? Of course. Let me give you a word of advice. Don't struggle. Based on your movement technique just now, you won't be able to escape from my full strength. Obediently following me is your wisest choice. I can even be a little gentler when I bite you. If not, Aku's voice was cold. If not, I will bite you to death. Qin Hao shook his head. Forget it. I don't have time to waste with you. Old demon, take her. Jiejia, a ball of scarlet gas immediately floated above Qin Hao's head. The old demon had been impatient for a long time. The moment he appeared, the blood energy he emitted was many times stronger than Aku's. In particular, the purity of the old demon's blood energy was completely incomparable to Aku's. It was as if Aku was a blood slave of the lowest level. On the other hand, the old demon was like the ancestor of the blood race. This is, Aku's eyes flickered. Her expression was incomparably shocked, and her legs trembled violently. The blood ball above Qin Hao's head had the aura of a king. It would be as easy as flipping his hand to destroy her. But what made Aku's heart jump was that the old demon's blood ball had the aura of a superior. It was like the emperor of the blood race, innately suppressing all blood race members. Even her father would not be able to resist the urge to kneel down and worship the old demon, let alone Aku. This feeling, could it be what the elders in the race were talking about? Aku, who was terrified, revealed a joyful expression that confused Qin Hao. She was actually happy and excited. But before she could finish her sentence, the blood energy in your body is not bad. It's a pity that you are a woman. If you were a man, I would have taken over your body. However, absorbing your blood energy would still be a great supplement for Second Master. You are the life of his ancestors. The old demon shot out a ray of bloody light. Along the way, the bloody light transformed into a bloody spear and pierced towards Aku's glabella. If she was hit, she would definitely die. Be careful. At this critical moment, a gray figure descended from the sky. His aura was extremely strong, far stronger than the old demon's. He was a high-level Yuan monarch. He slapped the bloody spear across the air. Boom! Accompanied by the sound of an explosion, the bloody spear was completely annihilated by the red wind created by the palm. A huge pit was also formed on the ground. In terms of strength, the palm completely suppressed the old demon. Third Grandpa Aku was overjoyed. She hurriedly pointed at the blood ball above Qin Hao's head and shouted, "That is blood, let's go!" Chapter 524. When the old man flew away, he turned back to look at Qin Hao. His eyes were full of excitement and joy, as if he had something to say but didn't have the chance to do so. Qin Hao was puzzled by this scene, and the old demon was also at a loss. He actually ran away? The other party was stronger than the old demon, so why did he run away? Old demon, use your mind to check the surroundings. Understood. Including Qin Hao, the two of them immediately spread out their soul awareness, covering a radius of 10,000 miles. Their spiritual power was at the emperor level, and due to the restriction of their realms, they could only display 1/10 of their original power. However, the range of their spiritual power was still several times wider than that of elementalists of the same realm. Immediately, Qin Hao and the old demon sensed something. In the northeast direction, several auras were rushing toward this place at lightning speed. There were 7 or 8 of them. In terms of momentum, although they were not as strong as the old man who had saved Aku, they were not much weaker. Qin Hao immediately realized that this group of people should be the elders of the Dugu family. 7 out of 10 breaths had passed since the transportation passage between Nanshui City and Huayang City had been destroyed. This place should be very close to Huayang City. After such a big thing happened, the people of Huayang City must have just reacted, so they came to investigate. The old man who had taken Aku away was not afraid of Qin Hao, but of the elders of the Dugu family. But this still didn't make sense. That old man was very strong and had enough time to kill Qin Hao and the old demon before he left. Why did he run away in such a hurry? Maybe it was disdain. In the old man's opinion, his and Aku's lives were more precious than Qin Hao's. It was not worthwhile for him to put himself in danger just to kill a human. The elders of the Dugu family were not much weaker than him, and there were many of them, so he ran away in such a hurry. It was by chance that Qin Hao should thank the Dugu family. However, Qin Hao did not feel lucky about this. Instead, the corner of his mouth curled up into a murderous smile. "Old demon, have you noticed?" After Aku left, there was the aura of another living person 10 miles away. That aura was very weak, and it was obvious that he was severely injured. He was using a concealment technique to cover up his yuan qi fluctuations. However, this concealment technique wasn't very advanced. Just now, when Qin Hao's mind spread out, he just happened to capture this person's specific location. If he was not mistaken, this person should be Duguji. That bastard from the Dugu clan actually hadn't run away. He was recklessly staying behind to treat his injuries. What did you notice? The old demon was dumbfounded. He didn't notice anything strange. Forget it, let's go. Qin Hao raised his hand and put the old demon into his interspatial ring. Then, he used the water wind steps and shot towards Duguji's position like an arrow. The old demon was a soul body and his soul had been injured before. Even though he had the same emperor-grade mental strength as Qin Hao, his accuracy was far inferior to Qin Hao's. Therefore, he did not detect Duguji's aura. Qin Hao naturally wouldn't let go of such a good opportunity. All the signs indicated that Duguji's identity was not simple. It was very likely that he was a direct disciple of the Dugu clan. Qin Hao just happened to capture him alive. He could get information about the battle a month ago and the whereabouts of his father and mother. 10 miles away, in a desolate grassland, Duguji was hiding in a pile of weeds that was as tall as a person. He was like a frightened rabbit, his body trembling. There was a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth, and his eyes were filled with panic. I actually encountered a foreign race and was almost bitten. Bitch, Duguji said ruthlessly. His palm gently touched his chest. There was a burning pain in his chest. Clearly, Aku's palm strike was not light. In addition, when the passage collapsed, it produced the power of space distortion. If he wasn't wearing a set of sacred armor and crushing the protective talisman his father gave him, he would have been buried in the wilderness like a pig or a dog. Even so, he was still seriously injured. Originally, he was a 2-star profound sage, but now, he couldn't even use 1 star. Fortunately, this young master survived. Duguji took a deep breath and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. After surviving a great disaster, one was bound for good fortune. This must be a hint from the heavens, hinting that he was the son of heaven and the next patriarch of the clan. Hee big brother, then I won't be polite. There's also 3rd brother and 4th brother. Don't worry, when I become the patriarch, I will definitely kill you. And that bitch who wanted to bite me just now. This young master will remember your face. See how I will deal with you later. Duguji cursed and sat cross-legged in the pile of weeds. He had to quickly heal his injuries. He didn't know if Aku had left or not. In any case, a huge consciousness had swept over, scaring Duguji. Although he was nervous, he wasn't worried about being discovered by that consciousness. After all, he was using the Dugu clan's unique concealment technique, which could turn one's aura into an invisible existence. No one below the king stage could see through it. It just so happened that Aku's cultivation was at the Heaven Sage realm. Apart from Aku, everyone else was dead. Therefore, he was very safe. Fortunately, they are all dead. Otherwise, this young master has lost face today. He remembered very clearly that when the passage was attacked, he patted his chest and told everyone that it was okay. But in the end, but for some reason, at this moment, Qin Hao's face flashed in his mind. Duguji furrowed his brows and sneered. That brat is most likely dead without leaving even a speck of dust behind. A single dog's life is worthless. He deserves to die. After saying that, he took out a few bottles of pills from his spatial ring and swallowed them one by one. After eating, he let out a long sigh of relief. Awesome! Being a young master of a big clan was indeed awesome. He had treasured armor, protective talismans, and pills. That was why he was still alive. Qin Hao was a single dog. That was why he was dead. That was the difference between them. Immediately, Aku's beautiful face appeared in his mind again. Duguji's face twisted a few times. He sighed and shook his head. What a pity, what a pity. She is actually a member of the mutated tribe. However, I have never tried a woman of the mutated tribe. I must catch her. I will make love to her for a few nights and let her know how powerful is my martial arts. How dare she hit me? With an incomparably happy mood, Duguji was just short of letting out a wild laugh. He also closed his eyes and began to regulate his breathing and meditate. He believed that since the passage was destroyed, the people of Huayang City would come to rescue him soon. Now, he had to buy some time to recover. At least when the people of Huayang City arrived, he wouldn't be too embarrassed. However, as soon as he closed his eyes, swoosh, the sound of something breaking through the air suddenly rang out. Then, a shocking sword light slashed toward him. Duguji was shocked. He was discovered by someone. He didn't care about his face anymore. He rolled like a wild donkey and dodged the sword light that was slashing down from the sky. Accompanied by a loud bang, the place where Duguji was sitting was suddenly slashed by the sword light, creating a gully that was more than 10 meters long. It's you? After dodging the danger, Duguji was shocked. He looked at Qin Hao, who was slowly landing from the sky, with a face of disbelief. This single dog actually survived the collapse of the space. One had to know that Duguji had crushed the protective talisman given by his father and was wearing a treasured armor. That was why he was lucky enough to survive. How did Qin Hao do it? Moreover, he had chased him all the way here. Are you surprised? Qin Hao revealed an incomparably amiable smile and glanced at the sword mark on the ground. Chapter 525. Duguji was indeed surprised. He didn't think much of the power of Qin Hao's sword. He could tell that Qin Hao was a mortal sage. Even if Aku came, he wouldn't be able to do anything to him, let alone a mere Qin Hao. But since he was here, he definitely wouldn't allow Qin Hao to leave alive. Otherwise, the scandal of Duguji's boasting today would be spread out. Especially at the critical juncture of the fight for the position of patriarch, he couldn't let his image be tarnished. Therefore, everyone here today had to die. You survived the explosion, so you should cherish your dog life. You don't know what's good for you, yet you dare to come in front of me. I can't let you live today. Duguji sneered disdainfully and activated his Yuan Qi without hesitation. He was almost certain that the consciousness that swept past his head while he was healing was Qin Hao's. Based on this, Aku should have left, so he was even more fearless. Qin Hao was stunned. Why didn't Duguji feel any sense of danger when facing him? Instead, he was so confident that he could kill him. Kid, I only called you a single dog, and you're so petty and holding a grudge. You want to take revenge while I'm injured? Haha, you're nothing in front of me. Duguji waved his finger in front of his nose and clenched his right fist, gathering yuan qi on it. In the next second, he killed him. Qin Hao was helpless. I'm taking revenge on you because you called me a single dog? Moreover, I'm petty? It had to be said that Duguji was narcissistic. Answer a few of my questions honestly, and I can spare your life. Qin Hao gave the other party one last chance to live. Ha ha ha, spare my life? I'll King kill you first. Mountain collapsing fist. Duguji moved and ran towards Qin Hao. He extended his right fist forward, bringing with it a strong gust of wind. The yuan qi on his fist seemed to be able to shatter mountains, and his aura was rather majestic. He was using the Dugu family's high-grade cultivation technique, a mid-tier earth-grade yuan skill. Qin Hao shook his head. He did not know where Duguji got the courage to seek death. Not to mention that he was currently injured. Even if he was not injured, the mountain collapsing fist would not be able to cause any harm to Qin Hao. Teach him a lesson. Muttering to himself, Qin Hao decided to cripple one of his arms. Thus, he used the water wind steps and rushed forward. Midway, he suddenly twisted his toes and spun his body, dodging the opponent's straight punch in an exquisite manner. Taking advantage of the moment when the opponent brushed past his shoulder, Qin Hao slashed down with his sword. Clang! The sound of metal being forged could be heard. Qin Hao struck Duguji's forearm, but surprisingly, he didn't manage to chop it off. Instead, a ball of sparks flew out. Not only that, Qin Hao's hand that was holding the sword was also shaken to the point that it went numb, and he couldn't help but feel apprehensive. Duguji was still injured. After his punch missed, he couldn't help but fall down and eat a mouthful of mud. He quickly got up and stared at Qin Hao cautiously. He rubbed his aching forearm and no longer dared to underestimate him. His heart was also incomparably shocked. Qin Hao's purple meteorite sword had been continuously upgraded and reached the level of a quasi-sage artifact. However, he was still unable to chop off Duguji's hand, which was why he was so shocked. Duguji felt that Qin Hao's speed was too fast. It was not something that an ordinary mortal saint could compare to. The explosive power that was produced in that instant was even greater than that of a one-star profound sage. What astonishing speed! Duguji's face twitched a few times. You have a wrist guard on your arm? Qin Hao asked with a frown. Not only did he have a wrist guard, but the level of the wrist guard was definitely not low. Ha ha! Kid, you have good eyesight. Not bad. Duguji waved his hand and tore off the loose robe on his body, revealing a silver armor underneath. It was this armor that had blocked Aku's teeth. The armor was covered with scales, which shone brightly under the sunlight. It looked very mighty. Looking at him, not only was he wearing armor, but he also had silver wrist guards on his arms and knee guards on his legs. It was a complete set of equipment. This armor is called the Holy War Treasure Armor, and it's a middle-grade sage artifact. It includes the wrist guards on my arms and knee guards on my legs. Also hee. Along with his laughter, Duguji's spatial ring lit up, and with a whoosh, a silver cloak flew out and landed on his back. At the same time, he held a snow-white sword in his hand. It made Duguji look like a divine general from the heavenly realm that had descended to this world. His whole body was filled with holiness and domineering aura, making people unable to help but kneel down and worship him. Damn! Qin Hao was startled. He originally thought that the other party was only wearing a pair of wrist guards, but he did not expect that he would actually make an entire set for him. Every piece of equipment on his body had reached the level of middle-grade sage artifact. This was simply rich. holy war treasure armor, holy war wrist guards, holy war knee guards, holy war cloak, holy war divine sword. This is a famous set that was created by the #1 craftsman god of the wasteland in the past. I don't need to say much about the materials used to create it, and there's no need to talk about its defensive power. Just now you tried it, and it couldn't even break through my wrist guards. Now let me solemnly introduce the function of the cloak to you. When it's flying, the cloak can assist the wings. During battle, the cloak can greatly increase the defensive power of the back to prevent sneak attack. And this sword of mine, this is a peerless sword, Doguji boasted. In the end, he simply did not say anything. Instead, he hugged the holy war divine sword in his hand and kissed it, completely immersed in it. Master, the holy war set was created 2,000 years ago by the #1 craftsman god of the great Qing Empire. Its function is far more than that. I believe you can see that when you wear it, you can stimulate the attributes of the set and activate the inscriptions on it, increasing the already powerful defensive power by more than double. The old demon's voice came, telling Qin how the origin of the set. The old demon had seen this set in the past. At that time, the old demon was the dignified blood emperor, and trash sage artifacts were not worthy of his attention. But to the current Qin Hao, it was definitely a great treasure. Qin Hao could also tell at a glance that the set was not ordinary. There was definitely a lot of value that had not been unlocked. In terms of defensive power, after wearing the entire set and activating the inscriptions on it, the defensive power of the set could be increased to the level of a high-grade sage artifact. This level of defense was quite terrifying. No one below the monarch level would be able to break through it. Even an ordinary 1-star Yuan monarch would find it difficult to shake it. In addition, the set seemed to have hidden attribute. As for what exactly they were, Qin Hao did not know. He could only vaguely guess. If he tried wearing it, he would definitely be able to fully activate the attributes of the Holy War set, including the hidden attribute. Doguji, this reckless plaything, actually wore the full set of the Holy War in front of Qin Hao to show off. Wasn't this seducing him to commit a crime? If Qin Hao did not take it, he would be letting down the heavens. Chapter 526. Qin Hao let out a long sigh. It turned out that this was Doguji's trump card. This was his capital. This was why he felt that he could kill Qin Hao. It had to be said that after Doguji wore the Holy War armor, even if Qin Hao had the purple meteorite sword and used graceful sword and 100 steps flying sword, he wouldn't be able to harm Doguji at all. But unfortunately, old demon, are you interested? Take over his body. Qin Hao waved his hand and put the purple meteorite sword into his spatial ring, since he didn't need it anymore. Xiao! A mass of blood qi rushed out and floated above Qin Hao's head. Although this thing's aptitude isn't too bad, compared to Master, it's like a pile of dog shit. Obviously, the old demon disliked Doguji. Doguji had become a profound sage at the age of 20, which wasn't bad in the continent, and could even be said to be very outstanding. However, he had become a profound sage by relying on the medicines of his family. The old demon was actually most satisfied with Qin Hao. Qin Hao's physique was naturally, damn, he has a helper? With the appearance of the old demon, Doguji's relaxed mood immediately tensed up. Qin Hao wasn't a threat to him. But what the hell was this mass of red smoke? The old demon's gloomy aura made Doguji's heart shiver for no reason. His eyelids twitched and he raised his hand and said, "Come out!" Screech! Accompanied by the cry of a bird, a huge black shadow flew out of his spatial ring and flew into the sky, circling back and forth. Qin Hao raised his head and saw that it was a 10-meter-long vulture, emitting the aura of a holy beast. Its strength wasn't any weaker than Qin Hao's, and it was roughly at the level of a 7-star mortal sage. Ha ha! You have a helper, and I also have a helper. What can you do to me? The vulture was Doguji's contracted beast. With it entangling Qin Hao in the protection of the holy war armor, Duguji felt that he was 100% safe. Damn! Qin Hao was shocked again. That idiot had taken out a set of sacred tier equipment. That was a pleasant surprise. He had even summoned his contracted beast. The dog spirit had not finished eating the demonic beast pill and the other sacred beast pill that Qin Hao brought out from Sheeping City a while ago. Now, Duguji had given him another sacred beast pill. Brother dog, you're lucky." Qin Hao shook his head and sighed. Roar. As he spoke, the dog spirit immediately emerged from the interspatial ring and pounced towards the vulture to devour it. The dog spirit was 7 to 8 meters tall. Its fur was like a lion's, and its aura was like that of a tiger that could swallow the heavens. The afterimage it left behind was incomparably burly. When it pounced, a pair of wide, fleshy wings unfurled from its ribs. It let out a roar and approached the vulture with a fierce gaze. Because it had swallowed the lamp oil and a large amount of monster cores, its cultivation had broken through to the profound sage realm. Like human elementalists, it now had elemental wings. The difference was that the dog spirit's elemental wings were not illusory. They were real wings made of flesh and blood. The vulture in the sky was shocked. It let out a sharp cry and flapped its wings, trying to increase its altitude and distance itself from the dog spirit. In terms of cultivation level, it was at an absolute disadvantage. The dog spirit was in the profound sage realm, while the vulture was in the mortal sage realm. As it flapped its wings, feathers that blotted out the sky shot down like arrows towards the waterfall of dog essence below. If these feathers hit a human, even a mortal sage would be crippled if not killed. Roar. The dog spirit's neck shrunk slightly. Then, it spat out a lava-like breath. Heaven was the witness. It actually spat out a flame that pierced through the sky. Qin Hao, who was watching the battle on the ground, could not help but be shocked. The dog spirit's flame was already very magical. Perhaps it was because of its mutation. However, the flame it spat out had an aura that was very similar to the red lotus fire. Qin Hao did not dare to imagine this at all. Boom! The raging flames and the arrows intertwined. As expected, they were all incinerated by the dog spirit. The entire sky turned into a fiery glow. The falling sparks even exploded when they hit the ground, creating deep, smoking craters. At this moment, the dog spirit ferociously chased up to the vulture. Under its horrified expression, it bit down on its neck. Then, the shrill cry of a bird shook the sky. No! Below, Duguji's eyes turned red. It was not easy for him to obtain the vulture. It was not easy for him to sign a contract with it. It was not easy for him to raise it into a holy beast. It was not easy for him to boom. 2 afterimages fell from the sky. The dog spirit had swallowed the vulture. The ground was trembling from the impact of the 2 beasts. Smoke and dust rose from the ground to a height of 100 feet. In the smoke and dust, the vulture's screams were especially tragic. Although the situation inside could not be seen, it was completely possible to imagine what had happened. As time passed, the screams in the smoke and dust became weaker and weaker. Finally, it became completely silent. At the same time, the dog spirit slowly walked out of the smoke and dust. It walked elegantly like a cat and chewed a few times with its blood-stained mouth. Then, it raised its head and swallowed something into its stomach. Duguji clenched his fists tightly and shook his head in pain. He could clearly see that the dog spirit had swallowed a sparkling inner core. It was the sacred beast core of the vulture. White Feather Lightning Eagle, a 7th-tier holy beast. When it reaches adulthood, it will have the combat power of an 8th-tier holy beast. Furthermore, it will awaken the lightning talent. Its feathers will turn white. Your mongrel dog actually swallowed my noble White Feather Lightning Eagle. I, Duguji, swear that I will hunt down your entire family no matter where you go. Duguji's heart was crying blood. In another year, once he took control of the entire Dugu family, he would be able to squander resources without restraint. He would use the entire family's strength to evolve his contracted beast, the white feather lightning eagle. At that time, the white feather lightning eagle would rise to the beast king level and awaken the lightning talent, greatly increasing its combat power. It was Duguji's greatest trump card to dominate the wasteland. He had never thought that it would be swallowed by a wild dog and end up in such a miserable state. He and Qin Hao were irreconcilable enemies. Unfortunately, you won't have that chance, Qin Hao said coldly. Ha ha. What a joke. You and your wild dog want to break my holy battle armor? Duguji did not believe it. Of course, he did not have the ability to kill Qin Hao at the moment, especially when Qin Hao was surrounded by a giant dog and a creepy red mist. He could only run. When he returned to Huayang City, he would mobilize the elders of Huayang City. Qin Hao would definitely die, and he would die a horrible death. As a matter of fact, he immediately ran after he said that. He spread his wings and tried to fly away. Get the F***ck down here. The old demon would not let him do as he wished. A red light suddenly swept out and turned into a giant bloody palm. It slapped Duguji down as if he was swatting a fly. When the palm landed, Duguji, who had just landed on the ground, let out a painful scream. The wings that he had just formed were shattered. Chapter 527. Duguji was already injured, and this time, he was even more injured. The power of the old demon's palm had caused his blood to boil. His internal organs were damaged, and a few of his meridians were broken. If not for the protection of the sacred armor, even his bones would have been crushed. A king stage expert. Duguji was shocked. The red smoke that had shot him down had a king stage cultivation. It's all my fault for being careless. I didn't have time to wear the sacred battle boots. After feeling vexed, he quickly took out a pair of silver boots from his spatial ring and hurriedly put them on. If he had worn the sacred battle boots, he might have had a chance to escape from a king stage expert. However, he was disappointed in the next second. The old demon's red barrier extended over his head and trapped Duguji on the ground like a net of blood. Not to mention wearing boots, he would not be able to escape even if he had wings. He did not have the ability to break a king stage expert's barrier. Qin Hao could not help but be shocked. The other party had actually taken out another pair of boots. This time, he had really gathered all the necessary items. He walked over with a smile. Brother, don't be rash. If you have something to say, we can talk it out. I only called you a single dog. Why do you have to persecute me? Duguji immediately admitted defeat. Chasing after me just because of a single dog, isn't that a little too petty? Don't talk to me about being a single dog. It has nothing to do with that. Answer a few of my questions honestly, and I might let you live. Qin Hao kicked him in annoyance. I understand. This lowly one is called Duguji. I'm from the Dugu family. You're really from the Dugu family? Qin Hao was delighted. He bent down and stared at Duguji with his cold eyes. Tell me in detail about how your family tried to kill Qin Yun a month and a half ago. Remember, it has to be detailed. Time was tight. The Dugu family's elders were rushing over. It was more important to find out Qin Yun's whereabouts. As for who Duguji was and how noble his status was, Qin Hao was not interested. Gulp. Duguji swallowed his saliva and hesitated. This was a secret of the family. Hero, you better not. My master asked you to speak, so you better speak honestly. Do you believe that I won't kill you? With an explosive roar, the old demon floating above Qin Hao's head split off a few strands of red light and entered Duguji's body in a flash. Those rays of light were like snakes as they rampaged through his meridians, causing injuries to his inner palace. It shook Duguji's soul, causing him to cry out in pain as he rolled on the ground. According to the old demon's strength, It would be very difficult to shatter his armor without sacrificing something. Even if he could, the old demon would be reluctant to do so. But that didn't mean that the old demon didn't have other ways to kill Duguji, or even make him suffer a fate worse than death. I'll talk. Duguji was in so much pain that his entire body was convulsing. He fearfully looked at the red mist floating above Qin Hao's head. This thing was as terrifying as a demon. Soon after, he narrated the entire process of Qin Yun's attack in detail. It was a dark and windy night. The surviving member of the Qin family, Qin Yun, who had disappeared for many years, finally resurfaced. Damn it, if you don't let me taste your second master's true strength, you won't know. Hero, please stop. Qin Yun actually wanted to break the barrier our three families set up in the blood abyss, but he was discovered by an elder on patrol that night. Then, a battle broke out. His appearance was too sudden. That night, our Dugu family was on patrol, so we didn't have time to inform the Shiman family and Huangpu family. In the end, Qin Yun escaped and killed 5 of our low-level elders and 2 intersect elders. Duguji originally wanted to stall for time, but when the ball of blood above Qin Hao's head suddenly lit up, he quickly got to the point. Blood abyss? What's the blood abyss? Qin Hao asked. Simon Laoqing hadn't mentioned it before. The blood abyss is the headquarters of the outsiders. All the experts of the outsiders roaming the wasteland came from the blood abyss. It is also the place where the Qin family's ancestor was sealed. Duguji didn't dare to hide the truth, fearing that he might lose his life. Back when the 3 great families tried to exterminate the Qin family, they weren't able to exterminate the Qin family's super experts. With the Qin family's ancestor present, the 3 great families would be courting death if they fought the Qin family head-on. Instead, they used a trick to lure the Qin family's ancestor and 10 elders into the blood abyss headquarters. Then, the 3 patriarchs and the head elder immediately joined forces to set up a seal at the exit. The Qin family lost their ancestor and their elite. In a single night they were exterminated. If that's the case, then the ancestor might still be alive. The Qin family's experts might still be alive, so there's still hope of saving them. Qin Yun had been hiding for so many years. He probably couldn't wait any longer and went to investigate the seal at the blood abyss exit. Unfortunately, he was discovered. Qin Hao's thoughts moved quickly. After connecting the causes and effects, he guessed almost everything. However, Qin Yun shouldn't have dared to enter the blood abyss alone. The only reason he dared to go was because he had a helper. And this helper could only be his father, Qin Dingtian. Were there other people when Qin Yun was surrounded? Speak. Qin Hao anxiously stretched out his hand and grabbed Duguji's neck, glaring at him with bloodshot eyes. Yes. There was a middle-aged man and a woman. They claimed to be members of the Qin family. Duguji replied truthfully. He was also very puzzled. The Qin family's ancestor and elders had been sealed, and the others had been killed. They should have been completely exterminated. Qin Yun had disappeared for 3 years, but 2 Qin family's helpers had suddenly appeared. If it weren't for those 2 helpers, the Dugu family's inner sect elder might not have died. What about those 2 people? What did you do to them? The Qin family was certain that the middle-aged man and the woman were his father and mother. They've jumped into the blood abyss, Duguji said angrily. They originally had the chance to capture them alive, but after the middle-aged man and the woman were injured, they resolutely jumped into the blood abyss so as not to implicate Qin Yun. Because of this, Qin Yun, who had already escaped from the encirclement, turned back to kill. He was simply like a madman. After killing the 2 inner elders of the Dugu clan, it seemed that he was still unwilling to give up. In the end, he had no choice but to flee with heavy injuries. Good, very good, very good. Qin Hao was so angry that his body trembled. He had promised to protect his parents, but Qin Yun had done a good job of protecting them. He had actually caused his parents to jump into the camp of the other races. However, Qin Hao still had a chance. If the ancestor hadn't died back then, his parents would have been protected. As long as the seal on the blood abyss was broken, all the experts of the family could be released. At that time, the three great families, Tisk Tsk. Old demon, this person belongs to you. Qin Hao said coldly and released his hand from Duguji's neck. No, a person has to keep their word. You said you would let me go. Duguji's soul almost left his body. I did promise to let you go, but whether they are willing to let you go is another matter. Qin Hao expressionlessly waved his hand. Single dog, I'll fuck you. Duguji pointed at Qin Hao and cursed. His voice was immediately drowned out by the strange laughter of the old demon and the howls of the wild dog. In the blink of an eye, he turned into a corpse, his soul extracted and absorbed by the old demon. The holy war armor on his body was stripped clean. After death, not even his corpse was left intact. The dog spirit even swallowed a certain part of his body, squatting on the ground and slowly chewing. Just you wait, three great families! Qin Hao looked at Duguji's corpse on the ground. At the moment of his death, his eyes were filled with fear, humiliation, and extreme unwillingness. He probably never would have thought that the most powerful successor of the Dugu family would die in such a humiliating manner in the wastelands. Chapter 528. After leaving, Qin Hao didn't go back to Huayang City immediately. He found a cave in the mountains and set up a barrier to start his cultivation. There were more than 1,000,000 mysterious crystals in the space ring. He only needed to leave some of them to go back to Luoshui and absorb the rest of the mysterious crystals to break through his realm. He also needed to refine the 1,000 sharp weapons he took from Shiping City. In this way, it shouldn't be a problem for him to break through the mysterious Saint Realm. Qin Hao decided to keep the lethal weapons and equip them for the soldiers of Shiliang Daqin in the future. He had gained a lot from this robbery. In addition to cultivation, Qin Hao also needed to figure out the hidden properties of the holy war suit he took from Duguji. Of course, the most surprising thing was the flame that the dog spirit breathed out. That flame was extremely hot and powerful, very similar to the red lotus fire. After that, Qin Hao realized that because the dog spirit had been guarding the red lotus fire for a long time in the space ring, it must have been infected by the fire energy of the red lotus fire, causing its body to mutate a second time. Although the flame it breathed out couldn't be compared with the real red lotus fire in terms of power, it was much more powerful than the primordial fire condensed by Yuan practitioners. It was even more powerful than some low-level special fires on the continent. Undoubtedly, it was the dog spirit's most powerful attack. 7 days later, Huayang City. Qin Hao walked into the city in plain clothes like an ordinary person. After cultivating for 5 days, it took him another 2 days to get here. While walking on the street, Qin Hao filtered the information about Huayang City in his mind. Huayang City was the closest city to the abandoned city. After passing through it, one would enter the hinterland of the abandoned city. Including the Qin family, the 4 big families had built a city in each of the 4 corners of the abandoned city. They were called Qinzhou, Shimanzhou, Duguzhou, and Huangpuzhou. The 4 cities were like the 4 big academies guarding the imperial city of Luoshui, protecting the abandoned city. Firstly, they were the headquarters of the 4 big families. Secondly, they were there to prevent the aliens in the abandoned city from spreading. These 4 cities were undoubtedly the biggest barrier to protect the people in the abandoned city. After the Qin family was annihilated, Qin province was reduced to ruins and became a place for adventurers and rangers to explore. Qin Hao's next step was to enter Qinzhou through the teleportation formation in Huayang City. His intuition told him that if Qin Yun was still alive, he would definitely be hiding in Qin Prefecture. Only by hiding in the Qin Prefecture could Qin Yun preserve his life. Give me one of the best rooms. I'll stay for 3 days. Keep the change. Also, get the waiter to bring some wine and dishes. I want your specialties. Walking into an inn, Qin Hao clapped his hands and more than 100 mysterious crystals rolled onto the table. Qin Hao didn't know when the teleportation formation in Huayang City would be opened. After cultivating for 5 days, he needed to take a hot bath and eat a good meal. Immediately, the middle-aged manager at the front desk was overjoyed. He bowed with a smile and said, "Okay, please come with me." "Oh, what a coincidence, we only have one room left." The inn was called the Heavenly Fragrance Inn. A room for 3 days only cost 80 mysterious crystals. Qin Hao had just thrown out about 120 mysterious crystals. 40 of them were no doubt tips for the manager. 40 mysterious crystals was not a small amount. At least in the eyes of ordinary people, it was a sky-high price. At this moment, the manager was extremely respectful to Qin Hao. "Wait, I've already reserved the last room." A lazy voice was heard. His tone was unquestionable and filled with a domineering aura. Immediately, all the guests on the first floor couldn't help but look at the speaker. "Is he Fang Tianba, the young master of the Fang family in Dugu province?" Someone had already recognized this square-faced young man. Huayang City was an important supply city in the 4 states and was controlled by the Dugu family. Everyone present knew the power of the Dugu family very well. The Fang family was one of the subordinate forces of the Dugu family and ranked very high. More importantly, the person supported by the Fang family was Duguji. "It's our honor to have young Master Fang come to our Heavenly Fragrance Inn. However, this young master has already paid for the last room." The manager certainly recognized Fang Tianba's identity. However, Qin Hao had just given him a tip of 40 mysterious crystals, so the manager really didn't want to give it up. Slap! Fang Tianba raised his hand and slapped the manager's face. He stared at him and scolded loudly, "How dare you talk back to me? Are you tired of living? Don't you know who my master is?" I know. I'll check him out right away." The manager covered the red palm print on his face and looked at Qin Hao bitterly. "Young master, I'm really sorry. Can you find another place to stay?" "Don't worry, I'll refund you the room fee right away." Qin Hao couldn't help but frown and look at Fang Tianba. "What are you looking at? You don't agree? I'm your ancestor, Tianba. Get out of here right now." Fang Tianba shouted and stared at Qin Hao with a smile. "I've already paid for the room, but I'm really not returning this room." After Qin Hao finished speaking, he turned and walked to the second floor. "If you want to return the room, fine. But if you have something to say, then say it nicely." This Fang guy was so arrogant and domineering. He called himself someone's ancestor and even asked Qin Hao to get out. No one could tolerate that. "Stop, I asked you to get out. Do you hear me?" Fang Tianba was stunned. It was the first time someone dared to resist him. He took a big step and slapped Qin Hao's shoulder. It seemed that he wanted to throw Qin Hao out of the Heavenly Fragrance restaurant. Slap! Unexpectedly, Qin Hao's reaction was even faster. He turned around and slapped Fang Tianba's face. It was incomparably loud. This time, the first floor of the Heavenly Fragrance restaurant was silent. Everyone held their chopsticks and looked at Qin Hao in disbelief. It was as if time had stopped. Fang Tianba's face began to swell. "You dare to hit me?" Fang Tianba was also in disbelief. It was the first time he had been hit since he was young. And he was hit by a young man who was younger than him and was wearing a rough shirt. "You're courting death." After reacting, Fang Tianba directly attacked. His interspatial ring flashed, and he took out a 9-ringed broadsword. He waved it and a white light fell on Qin Hao's head. It was as if he wanted to chop Qin Hao into 2 halves. 3-star mortal saint. Many people judged his cultivation as soon as he attacked. In the entire wasteland realm, other than the direct descendants of the 3 major families and a few sons of the city lords, he was definitely a first-class existence. especially when Fang Tianba was so young. As expected of the eldest son of the Fang family, someone praised and looked at Qin Hao sympathetically. This young man shouldn't have attacked someone from the Fang family, especially in the face. 3-star mortal saint. Is he strong? Qin Hao replied coldly. Then, he flicked his finger at the white light that was coming at him. Clang! A soft sound was heard and Fang Tianba's broadsword was knocked away. Eh! Everyone present exclaimed in surprise. This inconspicuous young man had actually used a single finger to flick away the blade of a 3-star mortal saint. However, in the next second they were more than just shocked. In front of everyone's eyes, Fang Tianba's 9-ring saber shattered into pieces on the ground. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. What an astonishing finger force! Get out of my sight in 3 breaths! Chapter 529. He didn't know how strong Qin Hao's true cultivation was, but judging from the aura that erupted just now, crushing Fang Tianba was as easy as crushing an ant. Moreover, the saber in Fang Tianba's hand was a valuable mid-grade weapon. It was actually flicked by a finger. Elderly, what are you still doing? Kill this person. After the fear, Fang Tianba was filled with endless anger and shame. He pointed at the person behind him and ordered. There was an old man behind him, an elder of the Fang family. Seeing his master being humiliated, Elder Li's anger was even stronger than Fang Tianba's. He had failed to protect his young master. This was his dereliction of duty. Evil creature, die for me. Elder Li stretched out his hand and grabbed towards Qin Hao's neck. His aura instantly spread out and the yuan qi around his body blew the first floor into a mess. Many tables were twisted into smithereens by his yuan qi and exploded, scaring everyone to the point that they were in danger. 7 days ago, Qin Hao might have been fearful of him with this little bit of strength. But now, there was no need for the old demon to make a move. In the cave, Qin Hao had absorbed 800,000 mysterious crystals, spiritual energy, and refined 2,000 sharp weapons. His realm had broken through again and again. Not only had he successfully reached the profound sage realm, but he had also directly advanced by 2 stars and was now a 2-star profound sage. Qin Hao's 2-star profound sage realm was no small matter. With the support of the indestructible samsara art, killing an ordinary 5-star profound sage was not a problem. Elder Li of the Fang family was only a 3-star profound sage. Get lost. Qin Hao used the dragon bone-splitting hand. His arm stretched out like a snake and wrapped around Elder Li's arm, draining his vitality. Then, he hit the other party's chest with his palm. Bang! A muffled sound echoed. Elder Li raised his head and spat out blood. He was thrown to the street outside the Heavenly Fragrance House like a sack, smashing the stone floor. Just a small family relying on the Dugu family. The strength of your elder is really not enough. You want to take advantage of your seniority and bully me because I'm young. Qin Hao coldly snorted. Compared to the elders of the Shiman family and the Dugu family, Elder Li was indeed too weak. You little bastard. Receiving Qin Hao's palm strike, Elder Li's clothes were torn apart, revealing his sunken chest. Before he could finish his words, he spat out a piece of his internal organs. His eyes rolled back and he fell to the ground, dead. A 3rd-rank profound sage was actually unable to withstand Qin Hao's palm. This scene caused everyone in the Heavenly Fragrance restaurant to kneel in fear. Just now, they thought that Qin Hao would die without a doubt. Who would have thought that he would launch a magnificent counterattack, even killing the elders of the Fang family? Hero, spare my worthless life. Fang Tianba bent his knees and knelt in front of Qin Hao with tears in his eyes. He no longer dared to be arrogant. Last chance, get out of my sight in 3 breaths of time, Qin Hao said with cold eyes. I'll leave right now. Fang Tianba rolled and crawled out of the door awkwardly. However, He turned around and glared fiercely at Qin Hao. Obviously, he would not let the matter rest. "Steward, please take me to the guest room." Qin Hao turned around and said to the steward of the Heavenly Fragrance restaurant. The steward was scared out of his wits for a long time before he reacted and said anxiously, "Young master, you still dare to stay?" Not only did Qin Hao offend Fang Tianba, but he also killed elderly of the Fang family. Huayang City was under the control of the Dugu family, so Fang Tianba obviously went to call for help. "Why wouldn't I dare?" Qin Hao smiled faintly. He took out a small token and waved it in front of the steward. This token was very delicately made. It was found in Duguji's interspatial ring. "This is the Ao sword token. Greetings to the eldest young master." "Oh no, greetings to the second young master." "Nonsense, he is the third young master." No, it is the fourth young master." "In my opinion, it is the second young master Duguji." In an instant, everyone on the first floor knelt down. The Ao sword token was only owned by the direct disciples of the Dugu family. It symbolized the qualification to fight for the inheritance. However, they did not know whether Qin Hao was the eldest young master, the second young master, the third young master, or the fourth young master of the Dugu family. You are. The steward was so shocked that he was speechless. He covered his chest and hurriedly knelt under Qin Hao's feet. "Don't be nervous. My name is Dugu Qiubai. I am just a nobody who has been forgotten by the Dugu family. I just came back to visit my family. Don't tell anyone." Qin Hao gently pulled the steward up from the ground and whispered in his ear. This time, the steward was even more surprised. Forgotten person? Could it be that the illegitimate son of the current patriarch has come back? The steward guessed in his heart and immediately confirmed his guess. This was the only explanation for Qin Hao's possession of the Ao sword token. It turned out that the Dugu family not only had the eldest young master, the second young master, the third young master and the fourth young master, but also the fifth young master. This young master was probably here to fight for the right of inheritance. I understand. I completely understand. The steward gave Qin Hao a firm look as if to say, "Don't worry, young master. I will never reveal your identity." Immediately, he led the way for Qin Hao. "Okay." Qin Hao nodded and followed him to the second floor. But he was amused in his heart. "You know nothing. Who is this person? Is it the eldest young master or the second young master? It doesn't matter. Anyway, Fang Tianba is going to be in big trouble." After Qin Hao left, the people downstairs looked at each other and talked about it. Fang Tianba was a reckless guy. He was used to being arrogant and domineering. This time, he dared to offend the lineal disciple of the Dugu family who had the Ao sword token. It would be better if he didn't call the elders of Huayang City. If he called the elders of Gudu City over, it would be even more hilarious. The steward took Qin Hao to the fifth floor of the Heavenly Fragrance House. There was only one room on the fifth floor. It was the Supreme Suite. The Supreme Suite was used by the Heavenly Fragrance House to welcome the patriarchs of the three families, the chief elders, and the lineal disciples of the noblest lineal disciples like Qin Hao. He did not dare to take Qin Hao to any trashy room. In the end, the steward knelt in front of Qin Hao's door and offered him 120 mysterious crystals. He did not dare to take even half of them. Qin Hao did not know whether to laugh or cry. He closed the door and went to take a hot bath. After that, the waiter brought the most delicious food in the Heavenly Fragrance House. When he entered the door, he trembled like a coward, holding the tray for fear of offending Qin Hao. Qin Hao casually threw 2 pieces of Xian crystals to the waiter and sent him away. He sat down comfortably and began to eat. However, before he could eat a few mouthfuls of food, there came the sound of cursing and smashing from downstairs. Qin Hao knew that Fang Tianba must have brought people to take revenge. The steward knew about Qin Hao's noble identity. Of course, he would not let him in. He guessed that Fang Tianba was causing trouble in the heavenly fragrance house. Chapter 530. The first floor of the Heavenly Fragrance restaurant was in a mess. The manager was lying on the ground with blood all over his body. 2 hours ago, Qin Hao and Elderly had just finished their fight. Before they could clean up the place, Fang Tianba had arrived with his men. After he entered the restaurant, he threw punches and kicks at the manager. The manager was knocked to the ground and the cabinet at the front desk was also smashed into pieces. "Reckless fool, you dare to stop me?" Fang Tianba pointed at the manager who was covered in blood and roared. He was like a tiger coming out of the mountain, scaring the customers in the restaurant into hiding in the corner. They huddled together and shivered, not daring to make a sound. Behind Fang Tianba stood a row of Huayang City's Dugu family guards. One of the young men was especially eye-catching. He was tall and had a sharp gaze. Just by standing there with his arms crossed, his aura was enough to shock everyone. This person's identity was not simple. His name was Chaoan, the eldest son of the Dugu family in Huayang City. He was also Dugu Gaoyang's #1 guard. After Fang Tianba was beaten, he went straight to the mayor's mansion. He wanted to ask Dugu Gaoyang to teach Qin Hao a lesson and save his face. However, he bumped into Chaoan on his way there. Chaoan told Fang Tianba that Dugu Gaoyang was in charge of the teleportation array in Huayang City. He was very busy right now and couldn't leave. Naturally, as the #1 warrior under Dugu Gaoyang, Chaoan should stand up for Fang Tianba on behalf of his master. "Young Master Fang, Captain Chao, I am a lowly person, so you can beat and scold me as you wish. However, I have to tell the two of you that you can't mess with the man upstairs. Don't shoot yourself in the foot." The manager was under Fang Tianba's feet. When he raised his head, his face was covered in blood and the corner of his eye was cracked. "Ha ha ha!" Fang Tianba laughed out loud while stepping on the manager. "There is no one in Huayang City that I can't mess with. Brother Gaoyang and I are like brothers, and we work together for the second son of the Dugu family. Even the elders of Huayang City have to be respectful when they see me. How dare you say that I can't mess with a little bastard? Damn it! I'll make it so that you can't mess with me." Fang Tianba was furious. He bent down, grabbed the steward's collar, and mercilessly slapped him non-stop, causing the steward to scream miserably. Chaoan stood coldly at the side. He had to admit that Fang Tianba was right. Not to mention the elders, even he, Chaoan, had to be respectful to Fang Tianba. Fang Tianba and Dugu Gaoyang belonged to the main family's second young master's camp and worked for him. Today, he had been slapped in the face in Huayang City, and even his own elder had been killed. If he couldn't vent Fang Tianba's anger, Dugu Gaoyang would have no place to put his face. As for the guy upstairs, who gave him the courage to behave atrociously in Huayang City. At this moment, Chaoan couldn't wait to see it. In fact, at this time, Qin Hao had already come downstairs. His steps were slow and steady, and his simple clothes revealed a trace of invisible nobility. "Stop!" When the voice came, Fang Tianba was stunned. He raised his head and saw Qin Hao. In an instant, he gnashed his teeth in hatred and unconsciously let go of the steward's hand. His eyes were bloodshot as he straightened his back. "Young master, you're finally here. If you're half a step late, I'll lose my life." The steward awkwardly crawled to Qin Hao's feet with an aggrieved face. Immediately, he turned around and fiercely glared at Fang Tianba. His eyes seemed to say, "Flaunting thing, you're about to die." The moment Qin Hao arrived, he immediately gave the steward endless confidence. Everyone couldn't help but look forward to what would happen next. They wanted to see how things would develop. After all, Qin Hao was actually hiding his identity as a direct disciple of the Dugu family's main branch. And Chaoan was just a dog raised by a branch. Could he really dare to betray his master? Ha ha, this was too fun. "Young Master Fong, is this the person who beat you? Is he also the one who killed Elderly?" Finally, Chowan walked in front of Fong Tianba and coldly stared at Qin Hao as if he was looking at a dead man. After all, he came this time to stand up for Fong Tianba. "Brother Chow, it's this country bumpkin who not only broke my saber, but also slapped me. Slapping me is equivalent to slapping Big Brother Gao Yang. Slapping Big Brother Gao Yang is undoubtedly slapping your face. He's clearly provoking you, ignoring your bravery and thinking that you're trash," Fong Tianba hurriedly said. It had to be said that he was eloquent. With just a few words, he successfully transferred the hatred onto Chowan. According to him, if Chowan didn't chop Qin Hao into pieces and feed him to the dogs, he wouldn't be able to face Dugu Gao Yang again. After all, Qin Hao slapping Fong Tianba was equivalent to slapping Dugu Gao Yang. "Kneel!" Chowan's eyes flashed with a cold light. Powerful vitality suddenly spread out, forming a huge pressure that enveloped Qin Hao. Before coming, Fong Tianba had already revealed Qin Hao's cultivation in detail to Chowan, saying that he was a second-rank profound sage. When he first saw Qin Hao, Chowan was indeed surprised. He was surprised that Qin Hao had reached the profound sage realm at such a young age. This aptitude was comparable to the second son of the Dugu family, Duguji. Qin Hao was even older than Duguji, which meant that he was a peerless genius. Unfortunately, this genius was about to die in his hand. Chowan's cultivation was at the third-rank profound sage realm. Although Qin Hao had the proud achievement of killing Elderly, Elderly was also at the third-rank profound sage realm. Compared to Chowan, he felt that he was several streets behind Elderly. After all, Chowan was just 29 years old and full of vigor. Old Manly was over 60 years old, and had been stuck at the second-rank profound sage realm for many years. He was simply trash among trash. Therefore, at this moment, Chowan didn't hesitate to show off his cultivation aura to Qin Hao. He wanted to let Qin Hao know how powerful he was, how outstanding he was, and how different he was. "I don't care what you are. I'll give you 3 breaths of time to get out of my sight. If you don't, die." However, Qin Hao was still expressionless, and there wasn't the slightest change in his expression. Chowan's self-proclaimed pressure didn't seem to have any effect. Chowan couldn't help but be startled. He felt a bit embarrassed and said with a stern tone, "Good brat, you're somewhat arrogant. However, I'm afraid you don't have the qualifications to be arrogant. This world has always relied on strength. Fine, I'll be merciful and tell you my name. Remember, the one who killed you is Profound Sage Chowan." After saying this, he directly attacked. Yuan Qi condensed in his palm, and with a whoosh, he hit Qin Hao through the air. The illusory palm qi that flew out was very strong. It swept through the air, causing the space to crackle. Its potential was enough to break gold and break jade. "This is the mighty Vajra palm?" Someone in the inn recognized it and was immediately shocked. This palm technique was a low-tier earth-grade palm technique of the Dugu family in Huayang City. It had always been passed down only to the core disciples. But now it was passed down to Chowan. This was something that they had never expected. Chowan was someone with a different surname. From this, it could be seen how high his status in the Dugu family was. It was most likely passed down to him by Dugu Gaoyang. A mid-tier earth-grade palm technique of a third-rank profound sage had an astonishing lethality. At this moment, everyone in the inn was sweating profusely while thinking about Qin Hao. Chapter 531. The manager's expression changed drastically. That palm strike was too fierce. If Qin Hao died in the heaven-fragrant inn, a calamity would definitely descend upon them. Just as he was about to announce Qin Hao's identity, weak, Qin Hao snorted. He stretched out his right hand and slapped forward. Buzz! An energy seal whizzed out from under his palm, shattering Chowan's mighty Vajra palm head-on. Then, it blasted back with ease. What a powerful palm technique! Chowan was shocked. He pulled out his sword and slashed down. Bang! The sword flashed. Although he managed to shatter Qin Hao's energy seal, he was pushed back by the impact. His steps were messy and he was in a sorry state. After he regained his footing, his arms that were holding the sword began to tremble. What kind of palm technique is this? Chowan stabilized himself. A trickle of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Buddha's palm, Qin Hao said calmly. Good martial skill. I want this palm technique. I'll chop off your limbs and imprison you. I'll get the cultivation method of Buddha's palm from you. Take this. In the next second, Chowan's shock turned into great joy. Buddha's palm was much more powerful than Vajra palm. Chowan raised his sword again. He gathered his primordial qi and slashed dozens of times at Qin Hao's head. Every sword shadow was as fast as lightning and ruthless. Fancy! Qin Hao shook his head in disappointment as he watched the large number of sword shadows flying towards him. He stretched out his right hand and the purple meteoric sword appeared. Then, he swung his sword. Swoosh! A silver sword shadow that couldn't be seen by the naked eye flew out from Qin Hao's body and pierced through Chowan's sword shadow. Smack! 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 The sword shadow shattered. The silver sword shadow slashed through Chowan's arm. Blood splattered and a severed arm was thrown into the air. My arm! Chowan's left hand clutched his bare right shoulder. He lost his balance and fell to the ground. At the same time, his severed arm fell at Fang Tianba's feet. How is this possible? How is this possible? Fang Tianba was so frightened that he lost his composure. They were both palm technique. Qin Hao casually slapped Chowan with his palm, and Chowan couldn't stop. They were both sword technique. Qin Hao not only broke Chowan's attack, but he also severed Chowan's arm. What was even more ridiculous was that Chowan's cultivation was higher than Qin Hao's. This scene was beyond everyone's imagination. The seemingly weak Qin Hao had once again made a magnificent comeback. Hero, please have mercy, I am Duge Gaoyang's. Last chance in 3 breaths. Qin Hao couldn't be bothered to look at Chowan anymore. He was just an arrogant fellow who thought he was invincible just because he had some abilities. I'll leave right now. Chowan didn't dare to say another word. He picked up his severed arm and ran away faster than a rabbit. Crash! Once he left, the Duge clan's guards all ran away, leaving Fang Tianba alone. He wanted to cry but had no tears. Brother Chow, why are you so cowardly? It's just a severed arm. Don't you still have another arm? Fight with him to the end. Moreover, even if you want to leave, you should take me with you. Fang Tianba was so anxious that his eyes turned red. You promised to take revenge for me, but you ran away before I even got my revenge. You really don't have any loyalty. Immediately, Fang Tianba prepared to leave. Did I let you leave? A cold voice came from behind him, causing Fang Tianba to stop in his tracks. He subconsciously turned his head and met Qin Hao's cold face. Plop! Fang Tianba fell to his knees and immediately lost his dignity. He cupped his fists and cried, Hero, please spare my life. I've spared you many times. Since the first time you drew your blade at me, until now. You're the one who wants to die. You can't blame anyone else. Qin Hao slowly raised his sword. You can't kill me. Do you know that my master is the second young master of the Duge clan, Dugeji? I'm his favorite general. Dugeji. Qin Hao raised his eyebrows. The name seemed familiar. Master, the guy I robbed 7 days ago seemed to be Dugeji. At that time, we stripped him naked. Did you forget? At this time, the old demon's voice came from his mind. No wonder I didn't hear it familiar. I was wondering. Qin Hao smiled. Since Fang Tianba's backer was Dugeji, and Dugeji was already taken care of by this emperor, why are you still talking about such useless things? Swish. The sword fell and cut off Fong Tianba's head. Heavens! Many people covered their eyes. It was too bloody. However, most of them were shocked. Qin Hao's actions were so clean that he killed Fong Tianba without the slightest hesitation. Even if Qin Hao was really a direct descendant of the Dugu clan, it was undoubtedly a declaration of war against Duguji. Young Master Qiubai, you're too impulsive. At this time, the manager muttered and shook his head. Qin Hao was young and ignorant. He couldn't keep his cool and killed Fong Tianba, which would be detrimental to the succession. Impulsive? I can be even more impulsive. Qin Hao picked up Fong Tianba's sumaru pouch with his purple meteorite sword and handed it to the manager. The things inside should be enough to pay for your inn. After saying that, he strode out in large strides, looking very confident. The manager held the sumaru pouch in his hands, so excited that he shed tears. It was young Master Fong's spatial Dharma artifact, and the things inside were definitely priceless. It was given to the steward by young Master Dugu Qiubai. He was about to thank Qin Hao when he looked up. His heart almost jumped out of his chest. He saw that Qin Hao was chasing after Chao and young Master, don't be reckless. The manager ran out of the inn and shouted at Qin Hao's back on the street. Qin Hao chasing after Chao and was like jumping into a fire pit. He was going to the nest of the Dugu clan in Huayang City. For 17 years, I've been accompanied by a sword since I was a child. I've never met a worthy opponent. This time, I'm going to seek defeat. A poem, a bucket of wine, a long song, a sword across the world. Qin Hao's voice came from afar, revealing the loneliness of a hero. He even recited the poem of the swordsman. Seeking defeat? The manager stood there in a daze. Qin Hao's voice kept pounding in his mind. 17 years without a single defeat. What kind of spirit was this? What kind of loneliness was this? The manager breathed a sigh of relief and returned to the inn. He was worried for nothing. Qin Hao had the AO sword token. What could he do if he went to the nest of the Dugu clan in Huayang City? Could it be that Dugu Gao Yang would kill the successor of his main family? But in fact, Qin Hao was not going to the mansion of the Castellan, and Chaoan was not going there either. Because he was too frightened, the first person Chaoan thought of was his master. After all, he was a dog. After being hit by a brick, he should seek protection from his master. Dugu Gao Yang was not in the mansion today. He was in charge of supervising the transmission formation in Huayang City. Chapter 532. Little Chao, who injured you like this? Chaoan ran all the way to the management office of the teleportation array. The people of the Dugu family were busy. Seeing Chaoan covered in blood with a broken arm, an old man who seemed to be in charge hurriedly spoke with a cautious and surprised expression. Elder Su, there's a villain who wants to kill me. He's already here. Stop him first, I'll report to the young master. Chao An's expression was filled with panic, but he didn't have time to explain. Qin Hao's aura had been locked onto him. He was sure that Fong Tianba was dead, and he had to report to Dugu Gaoyang. Elder Su was an elder of Huayang City. Although he was a low-level elder, he had the cultivation of a 4-star profound sage. For the time being, it wasn't a problem for him to deal with Qin Hao. Once the young master mobilized the elders of the family, Qin Hao would definitely die. After speaking, Chaoan grabbed his broken arm and gritted his teeth as he rushed to the hall of the management office. Impudent! Elder Su was infuriated when he heard that. Chaoan was Dugu Gaoyang's subordinate in name, but his talent was extraordinary. The patriarch had already intended to take him in as a foster son. Now that he had lost an arm, his future was ruined. No matter who it is, if they dare to come, I'll make them wish they were dead. Elder Su was so angry that he blew his beard and glared. His aura was wreaking havoc around his body. Coincidentally, Qin Hao had already arrived and heard it. Is that so? With a cold snort, Qin Hao stood in front of Elder Su with his sword in hand and slightly raised his eyebrows. Who is this old man? Is he Chao En's master, Dugu Gaoyang? He's too old. Qin Hao thought that Dugu Gaoyang was a young man. At this moment, the management office was in chaos. Many guards of the Dugu family immediately drew their swords and surrounded Qin Hao. Vile spawn, are you the one who cut off Chao En's arm? Die for me! Elder Su roared and directly attacked without waiting for Qin Hao's reply. He had been an elder of Huayang City for decades, but he was still a low-level elder. Today, his chance to be promoted had come. Pucci! In order to protect himself, Qin Hao rushed forward and slashed out with his sword. Like an afterimage, he flitted across the field and pierced through Elder Su's heart. In fact, before Elder Su could even unleash his ultimate move, his heart had already been shattered by the ice-cold blade. His eyes widened in disbelief. Quick! It was too fast. His movement technique was unbelievably fast. It was so fast that just as Elder Su was about to kill Qin Hao arrived first and killed him with a single strike. Motherf F CKU. Elder Su roared with hatred. His eyes were filled with tears as he died under Qin Hao's sword in humiliation. A mere fourth-rank profound sage dares to boast so shamelessly. Qin Hao pulled out his sword and the corpse fell to the ground. Then, he strode over the corpse and walked towards the administration office. One man and one sword, no one dared to stop him. Even the guards of the Dugu family had to hide wherever he went. In Qin Hao's plan, he was not here to kill. Instead, he took out Dugu Ji's token and asked Dugu Gaoyang to give him a teleportation quota. With Dugu Ji's background, it should be easy for him to get a teleportation quota. But who would have thought that an old man would appear out of nowhere and try to kill him? Shaking his head, Qin Hao sighed inwardly. Dugu Gaoyang was out of his expectations. This time, he had killed the young master of Huayang City. He was afraid that the other party would not leave the matter at that. However, Qin Hao was not worried. With Dugu Ji's token in his hand, the branch of the Dugu family would not dare to do anything to him. Administration Office Lobby. A young man sat in the main seat with a smile on his face. He waved the brush in his hand and circled the last name on the list in front of him. He smiled and said, "The last quota is settled. The teleportation array can be opened tomorrow." After saying that, he put down the brush and stretched his tired neck. He stretched his arms on the chair and said, "Comfortable." This person was Chao En's master, the young master of Huayang City's Dugu family, Dugu Gaoyang. The last name he circled was Fang Tianba. Fang Tianba happened to pass by Huayang City today. Dugu Gaoyang knew about this, so he left the last teleportation quota for Fang Tianba. After all, their relationship was not shallow and they both worked under Dugu Ji. Master, this is bad." Plop! A figure rushed in and fell to the ground as soon as he entered. Chaoen! Dugu Gaoyang was stunned. Then, he saw that Chaoen had lost an arm. His face instantly turned gloomy. He clenched his teeth and slammed the table. "Who did this?" "It's Fang Tianba." No. "Young Master Fang Tianba, he pooped." Chaoen got up and replied. "What? Dead? Why did he die all of a sudden? He didn't even say anything. I even left a teleportation quota for him. What is going on?" At this moment, Dugu Gaoyang was incomparably shocked as he stood up and asked. Fang Tianba was one of Dugu Ji's right-hand men. It was not a small matter for him to die in Huayang City. "Master, it's like this. Heaven Fragrance Restaurant," Chaoen explained in detail with a face full of regret. He had underestimated Qin Hao's strength and lost an arm. How arrogant! How dare he cause trouble in my Huayang City, and even cut off your arm? I want to see how capable he is. Dugu Gaoyang was incomparably furious as he turned around and walked out of the hall. According to Chowan, Fang Tianbao was most likely going to die. Only by killing Qin how could he give Duguji, the second young master of the main house, an explanation. In the end, just as he stepped out of the door in front of him, Qin Hao was coming. The two of them stopped in their tracks at the same time as they looked at each other, sizing each other up. "Who are you? Who are you looking for?" Dugu Gao Yang and Qin Hao spoke at the same time. This frightened Chowan, who was behind Dugu Gao Yang. His face turned pale as he pointed at Qin Hao and said in a trembling voice, "Master, he is the culprit who killed Elder Li and cut off my right arm." "Master?" Qin Hao was stunned for a moment before he realized what was going on. He said, "So you are Dugu Gao Yang." He couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. He thought that the old man he just met was Dugu Gao Yang. Since he didn't kill the young master of Huayang City, the following matters would be much easier. "Damn it, so you are the culprit. Men, call Elder Su over and kill this person." Dugu Gao Yang didn't know that Elder Su was already dead. He ordered with his hands behind his back. He looked relaxed as if he could kill Qin Hao thousands of times with a casual breath. At this moment, the guards of the Dugu family had just entered the courtyard. They were very careful and their faces were filled with fear towards Qin Hao. In fact, if they didn't hear Dugu Gao Yang's voice, they wouldn't dare to enter. After all, the strongest person here, Elder Su, was already dead. If Qin Hao wanted to kill Dugu Gao Yang, no one could stop him. Even if the guards interfered, they would only be throwing their lives away. Luckily, Dugu Gao Yang was still alive. "Young master, Elder Su is dead," one of the guards cried. "Dead? You're talking nonsense. Elder Su was still alive just now. Why did he suddenly die?" This gave Dugu Gao Yang a fright, and he immediately became nervous. His strength wasn't high. In fact, he wasn't even as strong as Chow, and Elder Su was currently the strongest person in the teleportation array management office and was also Dugu Gao Yang's life-saving talisman. Now that someone told him that Elder Su was dead, how could Dugu Gao Yang not be anxious? He was so anxious that his ancestors were going crazy. Chapter 533. Boom! Chow Onru was struck by lightning. His face twisted to the extreme, and his legs trembled like soft noodles. Elder Su was dead. He had died under Qin Hao's sword in just a short moment. How high was Qin Hao's cultivation? Could it be that he was able to deal with Elder Su, a fourth-rank profound sage, in a single move? Impossible, impossible! I didn't hear any sounds of fighting, Chowan said in alarm. There was only one explanation for the lack of sounds of fighting. Elder Su didn't even have the chance to make a move in front of Qin Hao, and was directly taken away by the King of Hell. Compared to Chow An's alarm, Dugu Gaoyang was even more alarmed. With Elder Su's death, his life-saving talisman was gone. If Qin Hao wanted to take his life, it would be as easy as flipping his hand. "I'm warning you, don't come over. I'm the young master of Huayang City's Dugu family, and I'm also the cousin of the second son of the Dugu family's head, Duguji. If I lose even half a strand of hair, my father won't let you off. My entire family won't let you off, and my cousin Duguji won't let you off either." Dugu Gaoyang immediately lost all his courage. His arrogance, domineering, and powerful aura were all thrown into the basin. At this moment, he kept retreating, hiding behind Chowan. As for Chowan, he instinctively pushed Dugu Gaoyang in the direction of Qin Hao. The two of them looked as though they had seen a ghost. "Don't be nervous. Actually, I'm from the same sect as Brother Gaoyang, but I'm also a member of the Dugu family. My name is..." Qin Hao tried his best to appear more amiable. What he didn't expect was that Dugu Gaoyang's backer was actually Duguji. It seemed that Duguji, who had given him a saint artifact and a saint beast's inner core, had an extraordinary status. Qin Hao really regretted not having a good chat with him back then. At this moment, Qin Hao wanted to deceive Dugu Gaoyang, saying that his name was Dugu Qiubai, and that he wanted to borrow his teleportation formation. But as Qin Hao took a step forward, Dugu Gaoyang was scared out of his wits. He let out a strange cry and pulled out a large bamboo from his crotch. Raising the bamboo above his head, he let out a howl and grabbed the lead below. Bang! A streak of fiery light flew up into the sky and exploded. Ha ha! Bastard, you actually dared to kill Fang Tianba, and even recklessly ran over to this young master's teleportation array management office to behave atrociously. Just you wait, I've already sent a signal to the city lord's mansion. The great elder and the others will be here soon, and you'll die without a burial ground. Dugu Gaoyang arrogantly threatened, pointing at Qin Hao's nose. His gaze was incomparably vicious. Qin Hao's expression crumbled. I killed Fang Tianba because he wanted to die, Furthermore, I had no intention of becoming enemies with you. It was your family's old man Su who wanted to show off. Now, you still want to kill me? An inexplicable evil fire rose in his heart. From the beginning to the end, Qin Hao had been tolerating everything. I wanted to stay in a hotel, but you didn't let me. I don't want to kill anyone, but you put your heads under my sword. This time, Qin Hao originally wanted to negotiate peacefully with Dugu Gaoyang and was not willing to use force. However, the other party did not want to negotiate peacefully. Fine, since you also want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. Once the high-level elders of Huayang City arrived, the situation would be difficult to control, and Qin Hao would not be able to defend himself. Right now, he could only subdue Dugu Gaoyang and grab hold of the Dugu clan's weakness. Only then would he have a chance to explain. Therefore, Dugu Gaoyang could not be killed. However, this did not affect Qin Hao from giving him a heart-wrenching lesson. Then, Qin Hao stretched out his hand, and a suction force enveloped Dugu Gaoyang's body. City Lord's mansion. The main hall of the main building was filled with people. The scene was very grand. In the first seat on the left was a middle-aged man. His forehead was extremely similar to Dugu Gaoyang's. With a single glance, one could tell that he was his father, and also the patriarch of the Dugu clan's branch in Huayang City, Dugu Tsangxiong. Below Dugu Tsangxiong was the Dugu clan's great elder, and below him were the second elder, third elder, and fourth elder. The 10 internal affairs elders were all gathered here. In the past, a stomp of their feet would be enough to make Huayang City tremble. However, today, each and every one of them was incomparably respectful. They kept nodding and bowing to the old man sitting in the main seat. Even the posture of Dugu Tsangxiong and the others was very strange. Their buttocks were just touching the edge of the chair, as if they would slide down at any time, and kneel in front of the old man holding the dragon-headed cane. The old man holding the dragon-headed cane was naturally the inner hall elder who was patrolling Dan Ji's properties in the wasteland, Elder Zhen Kaihua. Perhaps he was already used to people flattering him, but when Dugu Tsangxiong and the other higher-ups of the Dugu clan expressed their admiration towards Elder Zhen's face was as calm as the wind and clouds, and there was not a single ripple in his heart. On the contrary, Nibbling Copper, who was standing next to him, had a face full of pride. According to Elder Zhen's words, Nibbling Copper and Qin Hao had signed a great 190% agreement. Therefore, Huayang City was the last city that Elder Zhen and Nibbling Copper were patrolling. After today, the two of them would return to Luoshui's imperial city headquarters. In order to take care of Dan Ji's businesses in the wasteland, Elder Zhen lowered his status and went to the city lord's mansion to chat with Dugu Tsangxiong and the other old men. Tsangxiong city governor, you're too polite. You've given me mysterious crystals and precious medicinal materials as soon as we met. In order to thank you for your support to the Elixir Pavilion, I can promise you a 30% discount in the future transactions with our branch in Huayang City. Of course, you only have 3 chances, Elder Zhen said casually. Then, he took a sip of tea and said, good tea. Oh, thank you, Elder Zhen. Dugut Sangxiong quickly stood up and bowed. As soon as Elder Zhen stood up, all the old men of the Dugu clan stood up, lined up in a row, and bowed deeply to Elder Zhen. Everyone was overjoyed when they put their heads on their trousers. A 30% discount was a great benefit. Although they only had 3 chances, they could take advantage of these 3 chances to increase their orders with Danji's branch in Huayang City. At this moment, Pang Ban, who was standing next to Elder Zhen, had an even more arrogant look on his face. Being bowed to by a group of old men was too honorable. It was good to be a staff member of the headquarters. He could show off to Elder Zhen every day. Bang! Right at this moment, in the distance, a fiery light exploded in the sky. The shockwave from the explosion caused the main building to tremble. It's the heavenly thunder cannon. Immediately, many elders of the Dugu clan recognized it. The heavenly thunder cannon was an important signal for the clan. It meant that something big had happened. In an instant, the 10 old men's faces changed dramatically. Looking at the location where the heavenly thunder cannon exploded, it seemed to have come from the teleportation portal management office, which was an important place for the clan in Huayang City. What's going on? Quickly send someone to find out for me, the chief grand elder said. It's just a small matter. What's there to find out? No matter what happened, it's not as important as entertaining Elder Zhen. In response, Dugut Sangxiong waved his hand casually and said impatiently. He also glared at the chief elder. It's fine. If the Dugu clan has something urgent, send someone to take a look. Old man, I should return to the headquarters. Elder Zhen stood up and said. Chapter 534. I said something important, but it's not as important as entertaining Elder Zhen. Didn't you hear me clearly? Dugut Sangxiong solemnly shouted. He glanced at the great elder, then hurriedly greeted Elder Zhen with a smile. Even if his son was killed, he wouldn't neglect Zhen Kaihua in the slightest. This made Elder Zhen a little embarrassed. Dugut Sangxiong was too enthusiastic. Patriarch Sangxiong, I advise you to go. It doesn't matter if your son Dugu Gaoyang died, but if the explosion of the heavenly lightning cannon is related to the second young master, don't blame old man for being ruthless. At this time, a figure walked out from the back hall. His aura was very heavy. It was an old man in a golden robe. His face was extremely gloomy, and one could tell with a glance that his strength was not ordinary. This person's identity was not ordinary. He was one of the elders of the Dugu clan in the abandoned Dugu province. His name was Dugujin. The second young master Dugujin spoke of was naturally Duguji, who had died in the wilderness 7 days ago. The news of Duguji's death had been transmitted to the main clan by Dugut Sangxiong on the same day. The main clan had sent Dugujin to investigate the cause of death. This matter was too important, and Duguji's death was too undignified. Not only had he been stripped naked, but a certain thing had also been cut off. Therefore, Dugujin temporarily suppressed the news and did not announce Duguji's death to the outside world. As soon as Dugujin appeared, a suffocating pressure shrouded the hall. Elder Zhen's body trembled as he sized up the other party. He instinctively felt that Dugujin's status was not ordinary, and that his strength was not below his. Therefore, he said to Dugut Sangxiong, Patriarch Sangxiong, why don't you take some people to take a look? When old man returns to the headquarters, he also needs to borrow the teleportation array. There's an accident. Okay. Dugut Sangxiong immediately nodded. In fact, he had felt guilty the moment Dugujin arrived. Following Elder Zhen's words, he immediately led everyone to the Teleportation Array Management Center in Huayang City. The management center was not far from the city lord's mansion. Everyone present was an expert. In the blink of an eye, everyone arrived. At this moment, earth-shattering slaps echoed throughout the Teleportation Array Management Center, mixed with miserable howls. Everyone, look! The patriarch and the elders are here. Among the dense crowd, a guard shouted loudly, attracting everyone's attention to Dugut Sangxiong. As for Elder Zhen and Dugujin, they were ignored by the guards. Patriarch, you're here! A man whose face was swollen higher than his buttocks, his mouth crooked, and one of his arms broken, threw himself at Dugut Sangxiong's feet. This gave Dugut Sangxiong a fright, and he instinctively raised his foot to kick the man's face. What kind of evildoer dares to assassinate the old man? After saying that, he mercilessly kicked Chaoan in the face. Patriarch, I'm little Chao. There's an extremely arrogant brat who killed Elder Li of the Fong clan and Fong Tianba. He even cut off one of my arms. Chaoan crawled over again, crying bitterly and looking extremely miserable. Your little Chao? Dugut Sangxiong's gaze carefully fell on Chaoan's face. It was difficult for him to associate the guy whose face was beaten out of shape with the dignified Chaoan. That's right, I'm little Chao. Chaoan wanted to cry, but no tears came out. He then told Dugut Sangxiong about Fong Tianba's death. What did you say? Someone killed Elder Li and nephew Fong? And even killed Elder Su? Dugut Sangxiong's body trembled, and his yuan qi immediately wreaked havoc. The anger on his face was undisguised. That person stabbed Elder Su to death with a single sword, as if it was a piece of paper. Right now, he's beating young Master Gao Yang. After saying that, Chaoan pointed at the crowd. Immediately, the Dugu clan guards surrounding Qin Hao parted. Crash! Two figures were revealed. Qin Hao held a horsewhip in his hand and whipped Dugu Gao Yang, who was lying on the ground. Dugu Gao Yang's clothes were torn, and his back was lacerated. Even his pants had fallen off. His buttocks were full of wounds, swollen even higher than Chaoan's face. Father, quickly save my life. Dugu Gao Yang miserably stretched out a hand toward Dugut Sangxiong. Dugut Sangxiong was immediately enraged. His eyes were burning like torches, and flames were about to spurt out from his eyes. Dugu Gao Yang was his only son. For many years, he could not bear to scold or beat him. He had even specially found an absolute genius, Chaoan, to be his son's bodyguard. Now, he was being publicly whipped like a pig or a dog. Brat, you're so daring. You killed people from the Fong clan, killed an elder of my Dugu clan, and even cut off an arm of my foster son, Chaoan. What's even more intolerable is that you actually whipped my son. If I don't whip you to death today, I'll be your grandson. After saying that, Dugut Sangxiong leaped up and landed on Qin Hao's head like a rock spreading its wings. His cultivation also erupted, and his body shone with a strong red yuan qi. He was actually a stage 2 yuan monarch. Under his palm, there was also a ferocious yuan qi that shot towards Qin Hao. When he moved, the 10 elders of Huayang City all moved. They were all filled with righteous indignation and wanted nothing more than to tear Qin Hao into pieces. Therefore, 10 more yuan qi gathered in their palms. If Qin Hao was hit, he would definitely be torn to pieces on the spot. Slap! The sound of a slap was suddenly heard. Bang! 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 Following that, the 10 elders were collectively sent flying. Before the yuan qi gathered in their palms could be sent out, they fell to the ground one after another. Dugut Sangxiong also landed heavily in the middle of the 10 elders. A bright red palm print immediately appeared on his face. Unexpectedly, Qin Hao stood in the same spot, holding the whip in his hand. He was unharmed. At this moment, Elder Zhen appeared beside Qin Hao. Obviously, the person who had repelled Dugut Sangxiong and the 10 elders was Elder Zhen. Damn, who is this old man? He sent the patriarch and 10 elders flying with one move. Isn't that too terrifying? The guards of the Dugu clan were shocked. Brother Zhen, why did you hit me? This time, Dugut Sangxiong was stunned and said while covering his face. Yes, Brother Jean, we didn't do anything wrong to you. We even treated you to tea, gave you mystical crystals, and gave you precious medicinal herbs. The 10 elders who were lying on the ground felt extremely wronged. In order to please Elder Jean, they had given away almost all of their savings over the years. You still say you didn't do anything wrong to me? Good, good, good. Now, I'll tell you what kind of heinous crime you've committed. This person is. Elder Jean pointed at Qin Hao and didn't know what to call him. When they parted ways in Sheeping City, he advised Qin Hao to change his name. In fact, Elder Jean didn't expect to meet Qin Hao in Huayang City today, so he didn't know what alias he was using. In an instant, Elder Jean was extremely anxious and embarrassed. Aren't you Hua and Na? I, Duguchiobai, am really fated to meet you in Huayang City. Qin Hao saw Elder Jean's embarrassment at a glance. He threw away the whip in his hand and hurriedly cupped his fist to salute. He secretly gave Elder Jean and Na a look, which meant, I'm now called Duguchiobai. Chapter 535. Duguchiobai? Dugu Tsangxiong and the 10 elders looked at each other. Could it be that Qin Hao was a member of the Dugu clan in the wasteland? But they had never heard of a member of a clan named Duguchiobai. This was especially true for Dugu Jin, who was hiding in the crowd. His expression was extremely grave. He was a member of the main clan and knew every branch very well. However, there was no such person as Duguchiobai among the Dugu clan's branches. Brother Jean, who exactly is this Lord Chiobai? Dugu Tsangxiong asked. If Zhen Kaihua had not been standing beside Qin Hao, he would have already attacked. Even if Qin Hao was really a member of the Dugu clan, he would still have to pay with his life. Humph, young Master Chiobai is the proud disciple and only successor of the vice president of Qiangbin, one of the 4 great academies of the Luoshui Empire. He has a deep relationship with Old Man. How dare you be rude to him? Are you challenging the Luoshui Empire? Or are you challenging me, Dango? Elder Jean snorted and jabbed his walking stick into the ground, causing the earth to tremble. Hiss! Everyone present, including Dugu Tsangxiong, gasped. At the same time, Dugu Jin's expression became extremely grave. No wonder Qin Hao's name was not in the main branch or the branches of the Dugu clan. It turned out that Duguchiobai was from the Luoshui Empire and the only successor of the vice president of Qiangbin. His identity was not simple, especially when Elder Jean asked, Are you challenging the Luoshui Empire or Dango? Dugu Tsangxiong and the others were terrified. In a mere wasteland, the Dugu clan was only one of the 3 major powers. How could they have the guts to challenge the Luoshui Empire? Even more so, they didn't have the guts to go against the Pill Pavilion that was spread throughout every corner of the western Liang continent. Misunderstanding, this is all a misunderstanding. Dugu Tsangxiong immediately gave in. Elder Jean, young Master Duguchiobai, allow this old man to say something fair. Even though you are Luoshui's people, and have the support of Emperor Luoshui and Pavilion Master Dango, you can't act so lawlessly in my wasteland, can you? Especially since you've killed and injured so many important members of my Dugu family. You'd better give me a reasonable explanation today. Otherwise, I have the responsibility to seek justice on behalf of my family as the elder of the Dugu family's main branch. Dugu Jin walked out, his gloomy eyes sizing up Qin Hao. He instinctively felt that Qin Hao's background was somewhat unusual, and he might be related to Dugu Ji's death. Especially after seeing Qin Hao's lawlessness, killing Fang Tianba, cutting off Chao An's arm, and whipping Dugu Gaoyang, Dugu Jin was even more determined. Moreover, Dugu Jin released his aura. A layer of surging origin chi swept out with a hum, accompanied by a flash of red light. His aura rose to the level of a 6-star king stage, which was not inferior to Elder Jean's. At this moment, Elder Jean couldn't help but show a solemn expression. There was a saying that a strong dragon couldn't suppress a local snake. After all, he and Qin Hao were in someone else's territory, not the Luoshui Empire. Explanation? I, Dugu don't need to explain anything to anyone. Besides, who the F***ck do you think you are? Qin Hao was much stronger than Elder Zhen. He knew very well that he couldn't appear weak at this time. Otherwise, Dugujin would take advantage of him. Impudent! Dugujin shouted. He was very angry. As the third elder of the Dugu family's cabinet, even Duguji had to be polite in front of him. Qin Hao, a mere outsider from the Luoshui Empire, dared to challenge him in public. You'd better control yourself and take care of your hand. Otherwise, Elder Zhen squinted his eyes, emitting a cold light. Seeing Dugujin's origin chi become more and more turbulent, he immediately took out a bamboo firecracker from his sleeve. It was similar to the heavenly lightning cannon that Dugu Gao Yang had detonated. As soon as the bamboo firecracker sounded, all the palace masters and elders of Danji's branch palaces in Huayang City rushed over. Maybe it would be too late by then, but they would definitely turn Huayang City and even the Dugu family upside down. This was no doubt Elder Zhen's warning to Dugujin. Qin Hao couldn't help but feel touched. Elder Zhen was really loyal, but it seemed to be a little too loyal. At this moment there was no time to think. Qin Hao nodded at Elder Zhen, then walked in front of Dugujin and said, "Lord Elder, I have no intention to become enemies with your Dugu family." It was them who came out to die, then. Qin Hao explained what had happened. This time, I came to the wasteland under my father's order to find my family. My grandfather's 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 grandfather. It is said that they came out of the wasteland and wandered the world, then established themselves in the Luoshui Empire. But my family's roots are actually in the wasteland. Therefore, I have to find my family and acknowledge my ancestors. Qin Hao said righteously. He didn't even blush when he lied. On the other hand, Elder Zhen and Nibbling Kappa's faces were as red as a monkey's butt. They wanted to find a hole to hide in. If you want to acknowledge your family, you should have said so earlier. We are all from the Dugu family, but you are so cruel, beating me up like this. Dugu Gaoyang, who was covered in blood, got up from the ground. He was wronged, really wronged. He was beaten up for nothing. I wanted to say it long ago, but you didn't give me a chance. Moreover, I have a token here. Qin Hao's hand flashed, and the Ao sword token found on Duguji's body was shown to everyone. The surrounding people gasped. Ao sword token. Dugu Sangxiong and the others' faces changed dramatically, and they looked at Qin Hao with respect. This token represented the noblest direct descendant of the Dugu family. After seeing the Ao sword token, Dugujin frowned, and the frown became deeper and deeper, and finally twisted into a ball. If Qin Hao's grandfather's 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 grandfather was really a member of the Dugu family, and then went out of the wasteland to wander the world, Qin Hao should never have the Ao sword token in his hands. This token was worn by the direct descendant of this generation of the family. In other words, only Duguji and his eldest brother, third brother, and fourth brother had a total of 4. Qin Hao was obviously lying. He then thought of Duguji's corpse lying in the wilderness and his clothes being stripped off. At this moment, Dugujin had basically seen through everything. He went to explore the world, but he never returned. Could it be that young Master Qiubai is my... At this point, Dugujin paused. How could Qin Hao not understand that Dugujin was trying to be friendly with him? So he immediately held Dugujin's hand, as if he had seen a relative. Qin Hao said excitedly, "Then you must be my uncle. I, Dugu Qiubai, have met you before. What's your name again?" Dugujin, Dugujin. Dugujin nodded with tears in his eyes. He was so excited that he was about to cry. "Uncle Jean, it's Uncle Jean. I've gone through a lot of hardships, climbed countless mountains, crossed countless rivers, and swam countless seas, and finally found you." Qin Hao was also very good at acting. He bent his legs and made a salute to Dugujin. Chapter 536. How could Qin Hao hide this from him? He nodded with Elder Zhen and followed behind Dugujin. Under the astonished gazes of the crowd, Qin Hao, the criminal who should have been torn into pieces, had transformed into Elder Dugujin's distant nephew and was ceremoniously invited into the city lord's mansion as a guest. Looking at Qin Hao's departing figure, Dugu Gaoyang was so angry that he almost fainted. Chowan, who had lost an arm, spat out a mouthful of blood and lost consciousness. City Lord's mansion, inner hall. All of you stay outside and quickly set up the Big Dipper strangulation array. Listen to my orders and attack at any time. Dugujin whispered to Dugu Tsangxiong before entering. Dugu Tsangxiong was stunned. Although he didn't understand, he nodded and started to secretly set up the array with the 10 elders. The Big Dipper strangulation array was a unique killing array of the Dugu family. After it was set up and activated with the cultivation of Dugu Tsangxiong and the 10 great elders, even the level 6 Yuan monarch Elder Zhen couldn't escape. Under the bombardment of countless Big Dipper gales and lightning bolts, he was reduced to ashes. After Dugujin made the arrangements, he warmly pulled Qin Hao into the hall and sat down. Bang! As soon as he stepped in, Dugujin waved his sleeve and firmly closed the door. Then, he set up a boundary. Elder Dugujin, what is the meaning of this? Elder Zhen asked with a sullen face as he stood in front of Qin Hao. What do I mean? Dugujin slammed his palm on the table and glared fiercely at Qin Hao. Brat, let's not beat around the bush. Did you kill Duguji? At this moment, the warm-hearted Uncle Jin disappeared. Only killing intent remained in Dugujin's eyes. Grandfather's 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 grandfather and ancestors' 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 ancestor. Both of them were well aware that this was all nonsense. To tell you the truth, I ordered Tsangxiong and the 10 Elder Zhen to set up the Dugu family's heavenly astral strangulation formation outside the house. Only those who have reached the peak of the king stage have the ability to break this formation. Elder Zhen, you'd better behave yourself. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude. Besides, that flare you're holding. So I threw it away because it couldn't fly out. Even if it died, no one would know. There were many eyes and ears in the outside world. News of him killing Elder Zhen in public was bound to spread. However, things were different now. After setting up the Big Dipper formation, Elder Zhen had become a fish on Dugujin's chopping board. He could only wait to be slaughtered. He could not even protect himself, so he could no longer support Qin Hao. Therefore, the old man is now the sky and the earth, and I am the ruler of Huayang City. Hurry up and tell me, did you kill Duguji? Dugujin also pointed at Qin Hao's nose domineeringly. Young master. Elder Zhen was sweating profusely. He had been set up by the old man of the Dugu family. What Duguji? I don't know what it is. Is it a dog or a cat? Can you make it clear? Qin Hao was puzzled and refused to admit it. Boy, don't force me. Once I go crazy, I won't care about Dan Gu or Emperor Luo Shui. If you didn't kill my second young master, why do you have his AO sword token? His aura is on it. Dugujin's eyes were threatening, and he hit the table again. Crack! The sound of thunder suddenly came from the top of the room. It was crackling with great power. In an instant, Niao Tong was so nervous that his face was covered with cold sweat. Old man, don't mess around. Are you talking about this thing in my hand? Qin Hao held up the AO sword token and said calmly, It was given to me by someone. At that time, he was fatally injured and attacked by the alien tribe. He asked me to avenge him. Then, Qin Hao began to make up a story. The destruction of the transmission channel in Nanshui City was no longer a secret. Dugujin had secretly investigated. 7 days ago, The alien tribe had indeed sneaked into the transmission channel. Moreover, according to the mirror record left at that time, it was accurately identified as Aku. This matter happened to coincide with what Qin Hao had said. It was obvious that he did not lie to Dugujin. After we were attacked, I was injured and fell to the ground. I was unconscious. In a daze, I saw a woman with red eyes and a dwarf with a round body and pockmarked face who was less than 1 meter tall. They were besieging a young man. Oh, that young man was miserable. After a fierce battle, he was naked. He was stripped naked. Qin Hao shook his head. After the alien tribe left, he went to Duguji. At that time, Duguji gave the AO sword token to Qin Hao with his last breath and asked him to take revenge. As Duguji was seriously injured, he did not have time to say his name. He passed the AO sword token to Qin Hao and died immediately. He said that if I took this thing, I would be unimpeded in the wasteland and everyone would call me master. However, I did not know who to look for to avenge him. Moreover, I did come here to look for my family. I have to say that this thing does not work well. It's like a piece of junk. As he spoke, Qin Hao threw the AO sword token in front of Dugujin casually, making a clang sound. Nonsense, this thing is very useful. As long as you take it, all of us in the Dugu family will be your helpers. Dugujin picked up the AO sword token with great heartache and breathed a sigh of relief. Although there was still a trace of doubt, he generally believed that Qin Hao was telling the truth. It seemed that he was paranoid, and it was indeed a misunderstanding. "Oh, I'm sorry, Elderjin, I'm sorry to have frightened you." Dugujin hurriedly apologized. "Humph, I'll remember today's threat. I swear that from now on, the Dugu family will not be able to buy a single elixir in the Danji's branch hall in the wasteland," Elderjin said fiercely. It was a false alarm. He was so scared that he could not think straight. This, Dugujin gritted his teeth and took off the space ring. He respectfully handed it to Elderjin and said, "Elder Brotherjin, there are 200,000 mysterious crystals in the ring. I hope you'll kindly accept it." In order to repair the relationship between the Dugu family and Dan Go, Dugujin had to reluctantly give it up. "It's useless for you to give it to me. Give it to Child Xiaobai. If you treat the only successor of the deputy director of Qiangbin like this, if the deputy director knows, perhaps he will tear the space apart and come directly to the headquarters of the Dugu family. At that time, I'm afraid that even your patriarch will not be able to bear the consequences." Elderjin finally found a chance to vent his anger. He also threatened the other party fiercely. This frightened Dugujin. He quickly came to Qin Hao and said, "Nephew Qiubai, it's all Uncle Jin's fault. I've investigated thoroughly. You have nothing to do with the attack on Duguji. These 200,000 mysterious crystals. Who are you calling Nephew Qiubai? Do you think you can get rid of my humiliation with just 200,000 mysterious crystals? Are you looking down on my master, the deputy director? Believe it or not, I'll send a signal right away and let him tear the space apart." After saying this, Qin Hao pretended to take out a jade slip and made to crush it. "Nephew, you can't. Oh no, child, you can't. In fact, it's useless even if you crush it now. With my heavenly gang strangulation formation, no signal in the house can be transmitted out." Dugujin regretted it very much now. Not only did he offend Dan Gu, but he also offended the deputy director of Qiangbin. He did not know how strong Qin Hao's master was. He guessed that he must be a venerable realm master, who was powerful enough to doom the Dugu family eternally. Chapter 537. I will remove the array immediately, but this mysterious crystal stone Dugujin was in a difficult position. Qin Hao would not accept his greeting gift, and would not remove the Big Dipper array obediently. Otherwise, once Qin Hao crushed the jade slip, the deputy dean of Chiangbin would definitely tear through space and come here in anger. All right then, I will reluctantly accept it. Qin Hao accepted Dugujin's space ring loftily. He was just accepting a gift, yet he was being forced to accept it. Thank you, young Master Qiubai. Speaking of which, my ancestor's ancestor's ancestor did indeed roam the world when he was young. Oh, that's right, I have a blood soul jade pendant here. It is a huge treasure, and I will give it to you as well. If you don't accept it, I will not remove the array. Dugujin hurriedly took out a palm-sized jade pendant and gave it to Qin Hao. The jade pendant glowed with a dark red light. It was obviously not an ordinary item. When Dugujin had killed the members of the Qin family, he had snatched it from the hands of a branch patriarch. At that time, he had also thought that it was a treasure. However, after studying it for 7 to 8 years, he had found nothing. Why not give this useless thing to Qin Hao today to appease Qin Hao's anger? Master, this blood soul jade pendant is not simple. The blood inside is extremely pure. If I devour it, it will be stronger than absorbing the 3 million drops of blood in the demon refining gourd. I might be able to recover to the peak of the Yuan monarch level in a short time, or even stronger. The old demon's excited voice was heard. All right, I will reluctantly accept it on account of your sincerity. However, this thing doesn't seem to have much use. Are you looking down on my master? If he tears through space and comes here, I will not be able to stop him if he wants to seek justice for me and blame you for humiliating us. Qin Hao took the blood soul jade pendant and casually threw it into his space ring. However, he was overjoyed. To Qin Hao, allowing the old demon to recover to peak Yuan monarch in a short period of time was undoubtedly a huge boost in battle strength. I also have a dragon-slaying sword here. I'll give it to you as well. I found it under the bed of the Qin family's ancestor when our 3 great clans attacked the Qin family. The members of the Qin family were willing to die to stop me, but under my merciless slaughter they all died. I remember that the other grandson of the Qin family's ancestor, Qin Yun's younger brother, was called Qin Ye or something. He was only 8 years old, and that little bastard was holding onto the sword for dear life. In the end, I crushed his head with my foot. He even boasted shamelessly that I would definitely die at the hands of the Qin family. Apui, the Qin family is a bunch of pigs and dogs. Ah, it's the will of the heavens to give this sword to young Master Qiubai. Dugujin unscrupulously proclaimed his former might. With a flash of light in his hand, a large black sword appeared. It was covered in rust, and he respectfully handed it to Qin Hao. Judging from how nervous Qin Hao's clansmen were at that time, this sword was indeed a treasure among treasures. Unfortunately, Dugujin took it back and studied it for a long time, but he could not determine its material. Since it was useless in his hands, he might as well give it to Qin Hao. To be honest, Dugujin's heart ached at this moment. You did well. Very well. I'll take it. Qin Hao gritted his teeth and took the dragon-slaying sword. Even with Denda's temperament, he almost lost control of his emotions. After all, many uncles of the Qin family had died at Dugujin's hands in order to protect this dragon-slaying sword. Especially, Qin Yun's younger brother, an 8-year-old child, had also been in terms of seniority. He was Qin Hao's cousin, just like Qin Yu. Qin Hao would never be able to see his younger cousin again. An intense blood-red light flashed in his eyes. Master, don't be rash. The old demon reminded. The old demon understood how it felt to have one's kin killed, but Qin Hao had to endure it. Ha ha! The dragon-slaying sword is too mighty in your hands, young master. In the future, it will definitely be able to cut through all obstacles for you, exterminate all treacherous people in the world, and build a career for you. Do you feel better now? Giving away 200,000 black crystals and a blood soul jade had pained Dugujin greatly. He was especially reluctant to part with the dragon-slaying sword. Yes, I feel much better. You can remove the Big Dipper formation. You don't have to worry about my master tearing space apart. Qin Hao solemnly put the dragon-slaying sword into his interspatial ring. As for using it to kill treacherous people, Qin Hao swore that the first to be killed would be the Dugu clan. Phew! Dugu Jin breathed a sigh of relief. He had finally dealt with this troublesome ancestor in front of him. It was really unlucky. Qin Hao had killed many important members of the Dugu clan, but he had become an innocent party. Moreover, he had to compensate him. This made Dugu Jin very unhappy, but there was nothing he could do. In addition to being helpless, he had to compensate. Forgive my rudeness, but I can't return the Ao sword token to you. It belongs to the heir of the Dugu clan. However, I can give my elder token to you so that you can do things in the wasteland in the future. If you encounter trouble, you can use this token to mobilize the soldiers of the Dugu clan in the major cities. In order to completely repair his relationship with Qin Hao, Dugu Jin took out another token and handed it to Qin Hao. In the end, he smiled at Elder Zhen. This time Dan Gu should be satisfied. In response, Elder Zhen snorted and pointed to the roof. Dugu Jin immediately understood. He opened the door and stepped out, letting Dugu Tsangxiong and the others remove the Big Dipper formation. He had to return to the Dugu clan headquarters and report the news of Dugu Ji's death in detail. At this moment, he was filled with extreme hatred for the dwarf that Qin Hao had mentioned, who was not even a meter tall and had a round body and a face full of pockmarks. This damned midget was the real murderer of Dugu Ji. After Dugu Jin returned to the Dugu province, he immediately mobilized the clan's forces to capture all the dwarfs in the wasteland. Third Elder Dugu Jin, how was it? Did Dugu Qiubai confess? Should we immediately activate the formation and kill that old bastard Jin Kaihua? As soon as Dugu Jin came out, Dugu Tsangxiong immediately greeted him. Slap! Dugu Jin slapped Dugu Tsangxiong's face and said angrily, "Impudent! Dugu Qiubai is my distant uncle. You dare to plot against my uncle? Are you tired of living? Moreover, you dare to be rude to Zhen Caihua's elder brother Zhen. Quickly remove the formation. Otherwise I'll kill you, you bastard!" Dugu Jin's heart was full of hatred. He had finally mended his relationship with Qin Hao and Zhen Kaihua with great difficulty. How could Dugu Tsangxiong be so blind? In response, Dugu Tsangxiong felt extremely wronged. In the blink of an eye, his nephew had become his uncle. With a heart full of grievances, he waved his hand and ordered the 10 elders to remove the formation. Little Jin, old man has stayed in the wasteland for more than a month. It's time to return to the Luoshui headquarters. But I heard that Huayang City's teleportation formation will only open tomorrow? At this time, Elder Zhen and Qin Hao stepped out and addressed Dugu Jin as Little Jin, who said it would open tomorrow. It's clearly opening today. Is that right, Patriarch Tsangxiong? Dugu Jin looked at Dugu Tsangxiong with a straight face. He was also in a hurry to leave today to capture the dwarf. Chapter 538. Under the lead of the Grand Elder, Qin Hao was hastily invited back to the Teleportation Array Management Office. He occupied all the slots that would open the next day and immediately began the teleportation. This scene infuriated Dugu Gaoyang to the point of spitting blood. The teleportation slots that he had labored for several days to secure were all taken away in an instant. Upon seeing this, Chowan, who had just woken up, fell down and lost consciousness again. Uncle begging defeat, elder brother Zhen, I'll be returning first. If you have time, come to Solitary Province to have tea with me. With a wave of Dugu Jin's hand, the Grand Elder and the other 4 old men activated the teleportation array. Immediately, a curtain of light covered the top of their heads as starlight shone from the bottom of their feet. Dugu Jin, who was standing in the middle of the array, was swept up into the sky by a ball of white light. He flew straight to Solitary Province. Young master, I won't ask why you came to the wastelands, but this isn't Luoshue's imperial city. Crooks are mixed in with honest folk, and it's extremely chaotic. If anything happens to you, no one will help you. Should he ask Yao Lao for instructions and have him come over? At the very least, you can keep me by your side as a helper. Through the various signs, Elder Zhen sensed that Qin Hao's goal in the wastelands was not simple. While Dugujin was teleporting, he hurriedly spoke to Qin Hao. There's no need. I can handle it alone. You and An Yao can return to Luoshui in peace. Qin Hao appreciated the other party's good intentions, but he did not want to implicate Elder Zhen in danger. As for getting Yao Lao to come and help, time did not allow for it. In less than a month, the holidays in Qiangbin arrived. Qin Hao did not have time to return to call Yao Lao. His fate was unknown, and if he missed this opportunity, he might miss it for life. Therefore, even if he knew that there was a pack of wolves ahead, Qin Hao had to force his way through, even if he was alone. Sigh. How could Elder Zhen be at ease? His face was filled with worry. Soon after, he stared at Niu Tong and said, "Why aren't you presenting the treasure that you refined to old ancestor Qin?" Refined treasure? Qin Hao was taken aback. What treasures could there be in gnawing on copper? This. Alright. Gnaw Copper had a pained expression on his face. His hands trembled as he took out a pill from his sumaru bag. Then, he handed it to Qin Hao while crying. Saint Soul Pill? Qin Hao was really shocked. The medicinal pill in his copper hand was emitting a platinum luster. As soon as he took it out, the fragrance of the medicinal pill filled the air. The spiritual energy inside was incomparably rich. The fragrance of the medicinal pill almost made the Dugu clan's guards, who were 10 meters away, faint from intoxication. Dugu Gao Yang licked his lips as he enviously looked at the pill in his hand. He could feel that the medicinal effect of this pill was extremely powerful. Moreover, it was emitting a white-gold luster. It was a supreme-grade pill. This also caused the Dugu family's elders to reveal greed in their eyes, and they were itching to make a move. Seeing this, Elder Zhen quickly grabbed the Saint Soul pill and stuffed it into Qin Hao's hand. Patriarch Qin, this pill is the first profound sage pill that I refined according to the pill formula you provided. For this, I paid the price of half of my vitality. For an entire month, my body was weak and my legs were weak. I only felt better yesterday. You have to cherish it, Na Copper said with tears in his eyes. He had refined the pill according to Qin Hao's pill formula. However, he lacked the most important fourth-grade main ingredient, the Saint Violet Orchid. Therefore, he had used half of his vitality and was almost exhausted. Na Kappa's cultivation was a heavenly saint. Half of his vitality was injected into the furnace to refine a profound sage pill. Moreover, he had Elder Zhen's help at that time. It took a lot of effort for him to refine a supreme-grade Saint Soul pill. Originally, they wanted to take back the auction in Luoshue's imperial city. I will remember your kindness. Qin Hao was very touched. He kept it in his spatial ring. The war with the 3 aristocratic families was about to begin. This profound sage pill came at the right time. In the end, he added, that's right, this pill will be my share of the profits from the agreement. If you refine a second profound sage pill and auction it, I won't take the money. Pooh! Blood flowed from the corner of Na Kappa's mouth. Look at how useless you are. You won't die from refining pills. At most, Old Man will use half of my vitality to refine a heavenly saint pill for you as compensation. Now, hurry up and take out your earth-overturning seal and give it to young Master Qin Hao. Elder Zhen glared at Na Copper. Earth-overturning seal? Qin Hao was shocked again. Elder Zhen, I'm afraid this won't work. Na Copper was anxious when he heard this. The earth-overturning seal, man-overturning seal, and heaven-overturning seal were the identity items of Dan Ji's members. Ordinary members only had the trash earth-overturning seal, which was made of a lethal weapon. Na Copper was the chief elder of Sheeping City's sub-palace. His earth-overturning seal was a genuine divine weapon. It was a middle-grade divine weapon that had accompanied him for dozens of years. What do you mean it won't work? Giving it to young Master Qin Hao is the blessing of 10 lifetimes. You'll know what the benefits are soon. At most, when we return to the headquarters, I'll reimburse you for your 30,000 mysterious crystals. Take it out. Elder Zhen extended his hand and sucked the earth-overturning seal out of thin air from the copper-gnawing Sumeru pouch. He handed it over to Qin Hao and said earnestly, "Young master, this is all I can do for you. Remember, this is not our Luo Shui. No one will help you. Unless it's absolutely necessary, you have to bear with it." After that, he shook his head and sighed, walking toward the transmission array. Because at this time, old man Dugujin had already flown away. "Take care." Na Copper looked at his earth-overturning seal reluctantly, and chased after Elder Zhen with tears in his eyes. After that, a white light flashed across the sky. The two of them were transported back to Sheeping City. Sheeping City was the #1 city in the wasteland. After arriving at Sheeping City, they had to fly to the Luo Shui Empire. Once they left, Qin Hao would have no friends left in the wasteland. "I can't thank you enough." Qin Hao kept the earth-overturning seal. This item was indeed very precious. Not only was it a weapon to kill enemies, but it also represented the identity of a Pill Hall's elder. No matter which Pill Hall under Danji's name, he would be able to find a reliable helper. From this, it could be seen how important Qin Hao's safety was to Elder Zhen. However, wasn't Elder Zhen a little too enthusiastic? This was what Qin Hao couldn't understand. "Young Master Qiubai, are you still going? We can't hold on any longer." At this moment, the Dugu clan's great elder's hoarse howl could be heard. He raised both of his arms above his head, and both of his legs were trembling non-stop. He was desperately pouring his vitality into the teleportation formation. Not only him, but the other 9 old men couldn't hold on any longer as well. Every time the teleportation formation was activated, it would consume the vitality of 5 elders. After resting for 6 hours, they would have the strength to activate it a second time. Just now, Dugujin and Elder Zhen had activated it twice in one breath. This time, all 10 of them had activated it. Even so, they couldn't hold on for long. Oh, I'm coming." Qin Hao withdrew his thoughts and stepped into the formation. "I'm going to Qin Province." Qin Province? The great elder was stunned. He exchanged glances with the other 9 elders. Qin Province was currently a land without a master. It was very chaotic. Why would Qin Hao go there? However, they didn't think too much about it. After Qin Province was destroyed, there were many secret treasures of the Qin family. Perhaps Qin Hao was going to look for treasures like other adventurers. Suddenly, 10 rays of light surged into the formation. Buzz! Chapter 539. Qin Zhou used to be the headquarters of the strongest family among the 4 major families. It was undoubtedly the largest continent in the abandoned city. Looking around, the buildings were magnificent yet domineering. A few years ago, the Qin family was destroyed by the other 3 families. The earth-shattering battle left Qin Zhou in ruins. After a dozen breaths of time, Qin Hao landed in Qin Zhou. However, there was no teleportation array in Qin Zhou. The teleportation array in Huayang City was a one-way teleportation. It could only be sent back, not returned. If Qin Hao wanted to return, he would have to fly by himself. Therefore, the current Qin Zhou was not under the control of the other 3 families. It was extremely chaotic. It was a heaven for the strong and hell for the weak. The strong could do whatever they wanted. They could burn, kill, and rob. The lives of the weak were like grass. This place was mainly controlled by some big and small gangs. They divided their territories and did not invade each other. Buzz. As soon as he landed, a vibration sound came from the interspatial ring. Qin Hao scanned with his mind and found that the unpolished jade inside had reacted. If he was not wrong, it should be related to him. This made Qin Hao happy. Finally, there was a connection. He took a deep breath and pretended that nothing had happened. Let's find an inn to stay in. There were many ferocious-looking vagrants around. They looked at Qin Hao with unfriendly eyes. They seemed to be trying to figure out which faction Qin Hao belonged to and whether they should rob him. There were too many people here, so it was not convenient to take out the unpolished jade. Nodding, Qin Hao walked towards an inn. The most important thing right now was to find a quiet place for Qin Hao to eat the copper-chewing profound sage pellet and increase his strength. He found a very stylish inn, which was backed by the Broken Wave Gang. The Broken Wave Gang was quite prestigious in the Tianzi district of Qinzhou, so it was very safe. After paying enough mystic crystals, Qin Hao was led to his room by the waiter and closed the door. So expensive, he sighed. The inn in Qinzhou was 3 times more expensive than in Huayang City. He would probably have to pay more than half of the price to the Broken Wave Gang. After all, without the protection of the Broken Wave Gang, this inn could not survive. Old demon, set up a barrier for me. Qin Hao sat cross-legged on the bed and took out the profound sage pellet. This profound sage pill was refined by Elder Zhen and Na Copper. It was a top-grade profound sage pill. If nothing unexpected happened, he would be able to advance by 2 levels, from a 2-star profound sage to a 4-star profound sage. Breaking through to the profound sage realm was no small matter. When breaking through, one's origin energy would become chaotic and cause a lot of noise. In order to avoid unnecessary trouble, it was necessary to set up a barrier to deceive others. Understood. The old demon floated out of Qin Hao's head and spat out a bloody mist. Countless red dots of light covered the walls of the room, isolating everything. Then, another red light enveloped Qin Hao's body, setting up a double-layered barrier to ensure that nothing would go wrong. Qin Hao threw the profound sage pellet into his mouth. After swallowing the profound sage pellet, one could directly break through in a very short period of time. There was no need to refine the pellet. This was the biggest advantage Dendi had in developing the pellet recipe. After breaking through, Qin Hao decided to take out the unpolished jade again to see if there was a contact signal left behind by Qin Yun. As the profound sage pellet slid into his stomach, a stormy wave of power drove Qin Hao's dantian to revolve. This power quickly increased Qin Hao's origin energy, causing his muscles to contract and his blood to boil. The strength of his meridians also rapidly increased. But one sound. The barrier to the 3rd rank of the profound sage realm was broken. Qin Hao had reached the peak of the 3rd rank. One word, fast. But the 2nd sound. 4th rank of the profound sage realm. 2 words, still fast. But the 3rd sound. 5th rank of the profound sage realm. 3 words, his ancestor's speed was too fast. However, the medicinal power of the profound sage pellet in his body did not stop. The origin energy churning in his dantian not only did not weaken, but instead became stronger and more turbulent. What's going on? Qin Hao originally predicted that after taking Na Kappa's profound sage pellet, breaking through 2 ranks would be the limit. Now, he had broken through 3 ranks in a row, but it did not stop. He immediately operated the indestructible samsara art, just in case. At the same time, he probed his body with his mind. Qin Hao was surprised to find that the drop of demonic god's blood essence in his heart was flickering. There was a steady flow of blood essence energy flowing into his meridians, fusing with the medicinal power of the profound sage pellet and bombarding the barrier to the next realm. It was very difficult to stimulate the power of the demonic god's blood essence. After his rebirth, Qin Hao had tried more than once, but every time, he returned without success. In total, it had only been 3 times. The first time was when he was attacked by the white ape of Mount Autumn Wind. At that time, Qin Hao was in danger and unexpectedly broke through. The second time was when he was bullied by the muscular old man. As a result, the power of the demonic god was stimulated and the old man's origin energy was almost sucked dry. Qin Hao also unexpectedly broke through because of this. The third time was when he was fighting in the Rising Star competition. Now, Qin Hao was perfectly fine, and the demonic god's blood essence had unexpectedly awakened. It had to be said that it was a pleasant surprise. 6th rank Profound Sage, break for me. With a loud shout, Qin Hao activated the indestructible Samsara art, borrowing the power of the blood essence to break through again. But the 4th sound was heard. An incomparably powerful origin energy was also released from his body, shaking the barrier set up by the old demon and almost shattering it. This greatly shocked the old demon. Although his cultivation had decreased again and again, from a dignified blood arch to a 2-star Yuan monarch, the barrier he set up with his monarch-level cultivation was almost broken by Qin Hao, a mere profound sage. In particular, the aura that Qin Hao was emitting at this moment caused the old demon to feel extreme fear, and he almost knelt down. Well, the old demon didn't have a body. If he did, he would have knelt down already. 7th rank Profound Sage, break for me again. Qin Hao roared again, extremely excited. In the blink of an eye, he had broken through from a 2-star Profound Sage to a 6-star Profound Sage. Who else in the world could have such a cultivation speed? Unfortunately, after Qin Hao roared, the power of the blood essence that was swimming in his body disappeared, and the medicinal power of the Profound Sage-level pill was also completely exhausted. As for the blood essence, it once again fell asleep in his heart. I actually didn't break through to the 7th rank Profound Sage? Qin Hao was a little embarrassed and helplessly stopped cultivating. He got off the bed and clenched his fists. Although he hadn't broken through to the 7th rank Profound Sage, the strength of the energy that was flowing through his fingers wasn't inferior to that of an ordinary 9th rank Profound Sage. Even if Qin Hao released his gaze, it wouldn't be a problem for him to blow up the inn. This was Denda's confidence. Only breaking through to the 4th rank? Too slow. Qin Hao sighed in disappointment. He circulated his origin energy throughout his body, and his body felt warm and comfortable. In particular, there was an explosive power in his body that gave Qin Hao an urgent desire to fight. My ancestor, you suddenly jumped from the 2nd rank Profound Sage to the 6th rank. Your speed is already not slow. In the corner, the old demon's blood ball shivered and curled up on the ground. He was so jealous that he wanted to spurt blood. On the path of the Origin Tao, it was extremely difficult to advance to the Profound Sage realm. Some people wouldn't be able to take another step forward for the rest of their lives. Unless they had accumulated power in their body for decades or relied on rare and precious medicinal materials, they wouldn't dare to break through. Qin Hao took a pill and easily broke through to the 4th rank, yet he still complained that he was too slow. How could he let others live? When the old demon cultivated the Blood Emperor, it took his ancestor 200 years to go from the mortal sage realm to the profound sage realm. "I'm sorry, did I hurt you?" Qin Hao looked at the old demon apologetically. As the blood essence fell asleep in his dantian, the godlike pressure on his body disappeared without a trace. The aura on Master's body just now was very frightening. Chapter 540. Qin Hao smiled faintly. He knew that the power of the godfiend blood essence had stimulated the old demon. He was about to take out the unpolished jade. Stunned, Qin Hao glanced outside the window and said coldly, "Sneaky person, come out." "Who is it?" The old monster was wholeheartedly protecting Qin Hao. He did not notice that there was someone outside the room. Thus, he dispersed the enchantment and a red energy burst out. Thump! Then, a figure was thrown into the room. The figure was very petite and had long hair. It wasn't a stranger. It was Aku of the Blood Clan. "It's you?" Qin Hao was very surprised and his pupils shrank slightly. "Miss Aku, I trust you have been well since we last met." Aku had failed to assassinate Duguji and was taken away by a grey-robed elder. However, she had arrived in Qinzhou before Qin Hao. Moreover, she had accurately found Qin Hao. What was her purpose? Did she want to kill him? This was because Qin Hao remembered Aku's face. Now that the other party had come looking for him, he must be afraid that Qin Hao would inform the Dugu clan. However, what Qin Hao couldn't understand was that Aku had the chance to kill him when he was breaking through. Why didn't she do it? Thump! In the next second, Aku knelt in front of Qin Hao. Her beautiful face was filled with excitement as she said, "Blood Ancestor, I've been waiting for you for so long. Please, Blood Ancestor, save your people." After he finished speaking, he kowtowed to Qin Hao again and again, making loud banging noises. This caused Qin Hao to be dumbfounded. Blood Ancestor? Who was the Blood Ancestor? Did you get the wrong person? Get up first. She didn't have any hostility. Instead, she was very respectful. Qin Hao went forward and pulled Aku up. "Brat, get out of my way." Aku slapped Qin Hao's hand away angrily. Then, she began to kowtow to the ground. F***ck. Qin Hao was stunned. "You kowtowed to me with incomparable respect, and I kindly allowed you to dispense with the formalities, yet you scolded me instead?" He didn't know what was wrong with his brain. But in the next second, Qin Hao realized that Aku was no longer bowing in the direction of Qin Hao. It was where Qin Hao had been standing. Qin Hao looked over and saw a wisp of red smoke floating in the air. It was the wretched old demon. The old demon was floating above Qin Hao's head just now. "So Aku, so the person you're looking for is not me?" Qin Hao said angrily. "Blood Ancestor, it's been 2,000 years. We've waited for you for 2,000 years. You've finally been reborn." On the ground, Aku was still very excited. Her little head was like a chick pecking at rice as she continuously kowtowed to the old demon. This scene caught the old demon a little off guard. "You little doll, don't randomly call me your ancestor." Although I was also incomparably dashing and elegant, known as the #1 peerless handsome man in the world, and all the beauties on the continent regarded me as their dream lover, I've never married until today. I'm still a virgin. How can you ruin my reputation? Forget it, since you've delivered yourself to my door. Don't blame this old pervert for being ruthless. Aku's blood energy was extremely pure and was a great supplement for the old demon. If he didn't beat her to death, who else would he beat? As he spoke, the old demon made his move. A terrifying blood energy wrapped around Aku, and he was about to use the soul-devouring art. Aku was scared out of her wit. Hold on, it won't be too late to kill after asking clearly. Although he was a little baffled, Qin Hao felt that Aku might really be related to the old demon. It didn't matter if the old demon killed people, but it would be really funny if he accidentally killed his own descendants. Did you hear that? My master told you to speak, so hurry up and speak, or... The old demon roared. The blood sphere enveloping Aku's body began to glow, and Aku's blood began to boil uncontrollably. It was as if the old demon could refine her into a mummy with a single thought. Blood Ancestor, what happened to you? Did you really forget the agreement from 2,000 years ago? Aku cried. The reason they hadn't left the wasteland was to abide by their ancestors' teachings and wait for the old demon to return. They had waited for 2,000 years, and it was incomparably difficult. Agreement? What bullshit agreement? The old demon didn't remember at all. It seems that your soul has suffered some damage and lost some of your memories. Think carefully. 2,000 years ago, Crown Prince Yong Shou's personal eunuch Aku lured the old demon to try to awaken his memory fragments. Crown Prince Yong Shou's personal eunuch? The old demon's voice fell into deep thought. In a trance, a little boy appeared in his mind. Oh, old man, I remember now. It's that bastard Xiao Yezi. You're his descendant? Impossible. He's a eunuch and can't have children. With a long "oh," the old demon finally remembered the past. Crown Prince Yong Shou did have a personal eunuch at his side. He was very clever and was quite appreciated by the old demon. In fact, apart from Crown Prince Yong Shou, that eunuch was the only one who knew that the old demon was hiding in the Crown Prince's palace. In private, he did a lot of good things for the old demon. In his spare time, the old demon taught Xiao Yezi a few sets of blood-sucking technique. He wanted to comfort him by telling him that after cultivating these techniques, he could use his blood energy to condense that thing. Xiao Yezi was a eunuch and his body was damaged. Therefore, his wish was to have a normal man's thing and taste the wonderful feeling between a man and a woman. Later, the old demon killed Yong Shou and found that Yong Shou's body was too weak. He had no choice but to hide in the Lianyao flask. Then, Yi Long Yuan unexpectedly took it away. After the old demon disappeared and Yong Shou died, the Qing dynasty immediately fell into chaos. On that day there was a riot in the imperial palace. Countless soldiers killed their way into the palace. The soldiers stole treasures and raped the palace maids and concubines. In an instant, the imperial harem became a living hell. People's wails could be heard everywhere. In order to protect himself, the eunuch used the blood-sucking technique taught by the old demon. Then, as he fought, he suddenly went crazy and uncontrollably bit people, devouring their flesh and blood. At that moment, the blood race was born. Just as Simon Laoqing said, the mutated race ran rampant in the wasteland overnight. This was all because the technique taught by the old demon was incomplete. Xiao Yezi did not understand it and went crazy while cultivating. Ahahaha! Wonderful, wonderful, I thought it was strange. That bastard Xiao Yezi is obviously a eunuch. How could he give birth to an offspring? It turns out that the blood poison in his body had infected others and changed their bodies. The old demon was the blood-sucking ancestor. He became an emperor through blood. He was very clear about the flaws in the technique. Without his guidance, Xiao Yezi would never be able to cultivate it. Kid Yi is really capable. He bit out an entire race for me. What's his cultivation level now? I really want to meet him, the old demon said excitedly. After all, Xiao Yezi was his disciple. Although he did not fulfill his responsibility as a master. Actually, old ancestor Yi had already passed away 1,500 years ago. Aku pressed his head on the ground and cried bitterly. Boom! The old demon's laughter stopped abruptly as if he was struck by lightning. Dead? Xiao Yezi is dead? I ruined his life. Chapter 541. Master, are you really going to kill Crown Prince Yong Shou? Yes. Then can you not kill him? He's not bad except for his lust. If he dies, the empire will be in chaos. I won't kill him completely, but my soul will merge with him. In the future, I will be Yong Shou, and Yong Shou will be me. You can always follow me, serve me, and wash my feet. Ha ha, when I'm tired of being the emperor, I'll pass the throne to you. Thank you, master. This was what the old demon had said to Xiao Yezi, and it was also Aku's so-called promise. The old demon was just joking to coax the child. When an emperor was angry, millions of corpses would fall, and blood would dye thousands of miles. Every emperor who ruled the world had blood on their hands and bones under their feet. A mere trash like Yong Shou would naturally have his soul completely annihilated. That day, the old demon took Crown Prince Yong Shou's body to the Broken Dragon Cliff to refine it, but he never returned. However, Xiao Yezi took it seriously. He guarded the palace for 1,000 years until he died. Before his death, he still believed that the old demon would come back and rule the world with him. It was hard for the old monster to imagine how a 12 or 13-year-old eunuch had survived the riot of the palace soldiers on the day he left. He had also waited bitterly for hundreds of years to gain a foothold in the chaotic war between the vassals. He had guarded the royal palace, guarded that family property for him, and kept that laughable promise. But at this moment the old demon's heart was in pain. "My condolences." Qin Hao could understand the old demon's feelings. It was said that the emperor was cold-blooded and heartless, but in fact, who could truly be heartless? Just like the master-disciple relationship between Qin Hao and the 4 great generals of Daqin in his previous life, and the old demon and Xiao Yezi today. How did he die? Who killed him? I want to avenge him. After a long time, the old demon said in a hoarse voice. According to the stories passed down from generation to generation, no one killed old ancestor Yi. He died of old age and died peacefully. Aku replied. Xiao Yezi had cultivated the old demon's blood arts and relied on fresh blood to suppress his madness. However, he could not escape the cycle of the heavenly Tao. When the old demon heard this, he felt even more guilty. If little Yezi was killed by someone, at least he could avenge the other party, which would make him feel better. In the end, little Leaf died of natural causes. The old demon couldn't do anything. Qin Hao had already guessed the cultivation level of Xiao Yezi before he died. Emperor level. The lifespan of a martial emperor was less than 600 years. Only when one's cultivation reached the martial monarch level could their lifespan be doubled. They would have a lifespan of 100 or 200 years, but they would definitely not be able to live for more than 1,500 years. Therefore, no matter how hard a mortal tried, they were still ants under the heavenly Tao. Only by becoming a god could one break through the boundaries. We followed Ancestor Ye's orders and waited for you two for 1,000 years. I didn't expect you to really return. Quickly, save your blood descendants. Next, Aku began to kowtow again, looking very flustered. Qin Hao and the old demon more or less knew the reason for her cry for help. After all, when the 3 great families sealed the experts of the Qin family, they had sealed the vampires as well. Report the situation in detail. Qin Hao ordered. In fact, he was also very curious about what kind of trick the 3 great families had used to deceive the members of the Qin family and the vampires. Who do you think you are? Aku rolled her eyes at Qin Hao. He is my master, the ancestor of all the ancestors of the vampires. Listening to the ancestors' words is the right thing to do. Hurry up and speak, the old demon said in a deep voice. His voice was very mighty. This scared Aku, and her expression became incomparably bitter. Qin Hao was just a brat, and his cultivation was only at the trash profound sage realm. When did he advance to the profound sage realm? 7 days ago, when Aku met Qin Hao for the first time, the other party was just an ant of the mortal sage realm. At this moment she was very surprised. Qin Hao's strength had increased at a frightening rate. However, even if Qin Hao was a profound sage, he wasn't qualified to be the master of the blood ancestor. He must have used some vicious means. Aku nodded, firmly believing that the reason the old demon became Qin Hao's servant was that the other party had grasped his weakness. She had to find an opportunity to kill Qin Hao and let the blood ancestor regain his freedom. Aku then began to explain the matter of the vampires being sealed. In fact, the reason the experts of the Qin family and the vampires were sealed in the blood abyss without anyone knowing was due to the conspiracy of the 3 great families. The 3 great families forged 2 letters, one of which was thrown into the blood abyss, and the other was sent to the Qin prefecture. It was written on the letter that there would be peace talks. After the fall of the Qing dynasty, the Qin family had always taken it as their duty to protect the descendants of Crown Prince Yong Shou and the peace of the people of the wasteland. During this time, the two sides had fought countless battles. When a peace letter suddenly came, the old ancestor of the Qin family and the head of the vampires had no choice but to treat it seriously. Thus, they agreed to meet. They had been fighting for so long that they were really tired. On that day, the vampires respectfully welcomed the old ancestor of the Qin family and the experts of the Qin family. In order to show their sincerity, they even removed all the guards guarding the exit of the blood abyss. In the end, just as the experts of the Qin family entered the blood abyss, the three great families collectively appeared and used thunderous methods. That's what happened. Aku clenched her fists in hatred. Fortunately, some of the vampires were outside at that time, and not all of them were sealed in the blood abyss. Currently, the vampires were divided into the outer and inner races. However, the outer races were very few in number, less than 100. As for those walking corpses, they had no fighting strength to speak of. In a real fight, the walking corpses could only serve as cannon fodder. With less than 100 vampires in the outside world, it was impossible for them to contend against the three great families. Although I don't know why the old ancestors' cultivation was so weak, I believe that you are confident in your ability. However, Aku believes that as long as you are given time, you will definitely be able to return to the peak and become the omnipotent blood ancestor, leading our race to glory. Aku kowtowed. Return to the peak and become omnipotent? Easier said than done. I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you. In response, the old demon sighed helplessly. He didn't even have a physical body. He was relying on Qin Hao's blood essence to preserve his soul and prolong his feeble existence. Without it, he would have been reduced to dust long ago. Although I can't do it, there is someone here who can definitely do it. Master, I beg you to be merciful and save my descendants. The old demon begged. These vampires were the only ones Xiao Yezi had left for the old demon. He had to be saved. 2 hours ago, the old demon might not have believed that Qin Hao could do it either. However, at this moment, he was incomparably certain. Based on the primordial aura Qin Hao released when he broke through, there was probably no one in the world who could resist him. He can save the vampires? Aku pointed at Qin Hao in disbelief. He felt that it was ridiculous. Even the blood ancestor couldn't do anything, so how could this kid? Yes, I'm enough. In fact, not only will I save the vampires, but I will also save the Qin family. I forgot to tell you that my identity is actually the archenemy of the vampires. My surname is Qin. Qin Hao teased. He lamented how fate played tricks on people. The Qin family and the vampires had been fighting for 1,000 years. In the end, they might have to form an alliance. Chapter 542. As Aku was shocked and absent-minded by Qin Hao's words, Qin Hao took out the uncut jade and examined it in his hand. Suddenly, a layer of light appeared in Qin Hao's hand. The light gradually condensed and formed a row of words on the uncut jade. Collect 50,000 kilograms of blood Lingji. 50,000 kilograms of blood Lingji was not a small number. Not only was it not small, but it was also a huge amount. Qin Hao frowned as he pondered why Qin Yun wanted so much blood Lingji. If he needed it, he should have informed him earlier. Along the way from Western Fair City, not to mention 50,000 kilograms, even if it was 200,000 or 300,000 kilograms, Qin Hao would have been able to complete it. Now that he had arrived at Qin Prefecture, the place was extremely chaotic. Dan Gu did not set up a branch in Qin Prefecture. Even if he did, he would not be able to gather it in a short period of time. He would need to transport it from the branch halls through the teleportation array from the various cities. Master, is there a problem? Old Demon saw that Qin Hao's expression was abnormal. A huge problem. Sighing, Qin Hao was also extremely vexed at Qin Yun. I need 50,000 kilograms of blood Lingji. This made Old Demon and Aku gasp at the same time. 50,000 kilograms? His appetite was not small. They did not know if all the blood lingji in Qin Prefecture's medicine shops would be enough. This place was chaotic and the herbs were very precious. The purchasing price was also unimaginably high. However, it was not impossible to gather all of them. Aku asked, "Do you have any other requirements? For example, the age of the blood lingji?" Qin Hao thought for a while, and looked at the uncut jade in his hand. 50,000 kilograms is enough. There is no need to specify the age. Because he did not specify the age. You can try the Broken Wave Gang, Aku replied. As a local, she was very familiar with the powers in Qin Prefecture. Most of the herbs in Qin Prefecture were in the hands of the big gangs. Among them, the Broken Wave Gang was the richest. The daughter of the gang master of the Broken Wave Gang has been suffering from a cold disease since she was young. As she grew older, it became more and more serious. Until now, no one can cure her and she is suffering. If you can cure her, Duan Tianya will definitely be deeply grateful to you. He only has one daughter. After that, you can go to the medicine shop in the Tianhua district. 50,000 caddies of blood spirit. That should be enough. Aku reluctantly said. Even now, she still deeply doubted whether or not Qin Hao had the ability to rescue her clansmen sealed in the blood abyss. If it weren't for the old demon, Aku would have killed Qin Hao. After all, the Qin family and the vampires were absolutely irreconcilable. Moreover, it was because of the Qin family that the vampires were unfortunately trapped and sealed. It was a good opportunity to test Qin Hao's abilities and courage through the Broken Wave Gang, so that the blood ancestor could see the true colors of this Qin family boy. How did this brat get the blood ancestor's protection? Cold sickness. Qin Hao's eyes lit up. He could do it. She nodded and said, "Thank you for your reminder, Miss Aku. Do you have any blood lingji in your hands?" "Do you think I need it?" Aku said with a serious face. The vampires cultivated blood arts by sucking blood. If they had the time to use the blood lingji to brew medicine, they might as well catch a few masters from the 3 aristocratic families and let them bleed. Qin Hao smiled awkwardly. "Excuse me, I have to go to the Broken Wave Gang." "Master, I'll go with you." The old demon was Qin Hao's servant, so he had to protect his master's safety. After all, if something happened to Qin Hao, the old demon would be done for. The Broken Wave Gang was the biggest gang in Qinzhou, so they were not to be underestimated. "Blood ancestor, don't leave me behind." Aku panicked when she saw the old demon turn into a bloody mist and enter Qin Hao's spatial ring. "Miss Aku, you can go back first. I promise to help you break the blood abyss seal. 5 days later, we will meet at the Broken Dragon Cliff. I hope you can bring all your clansmen over. I need your strength." Qin Hao walked out of the room after he finished speaking. The blood abyss guarded by the Qin family was at the Broken Dragon Cliff. Entering the blood abyss seal could awaken elemental spirit. However, the blood abyss seal was set up by the blood ancestor, and it required the blood of 10 Qin family members to activate. After Qin Hao found Qin Yun, they should be able to open the blood abyss seal. If he wanted to save his parents, Qin Hao had to go to the blood abyss seal to increase his strength. In fact, he was looking forward to awakening an elemental spirit. An elemental spirit was a power that all elemental spirits yearned for. It was hard to find one in 10,000 people. Those who had an elemental spirit were regarded as geniuses among geniuses. Qin Hao didn't have an elemental spirit in his past life, which was Denda's regret. 5 days later, at the Broken Dragon Cliff? Aku looked serious. The Broken Dragon Cliff was a forbidden area in the abandoned city, and it was heavily guarded by the 3 aristocratic families. Breaking into the Broken Dragon Cliff was no small matter. However, if she didn't help Qin Hao, the blood ancestor would not return to the blood race, and she wouldn't be able to break the blood abyss seal. "Okay, I'll wait for you." She clenched her teeth and disappeared from the room. The Broken Wave Gang. It was the biggest gang in the Qin prefecture, and it dominated the entire Tianzi district. At the entrance of the Broken Wave Gang, people shuttled back and forth, looking anxious. This was because the gang leader's beloved daughter's condition had deteriorated to the extreme. She probably wouldn't live for more than 3 days. At this moment, many doctors carrying medicine boxes walked out of the mansion. As they walked, they shook their heads helplessly. The old man has been practicing medicine for 50 years, and he has never encountered such a troublesome situation. Yeah, there's nothing we can do. Not to mention treating her, I can't even get close to the young mistress, who is lying on the bed. My whole body is frozen. Even silver needles can't penetrate the young mistress' body. The moment they touch her, they turn into ice needles and shatter. I'm afraid she won't last until sunset. There were about 20 doctors walking out of the mansion, and all of them looked dispirited. At the entrance, an old man in a white robe stood still. When he heard this, he shook his head in pain. He was so sad that he wanted to cry. His hands were clenched tightly in his sleeve. He was the Grand Elder of the Broken Wave Gang. He had watched the daughter of the Broken Wave Gang grow up as if she was his own granddaughter. However, that girl was only 17 years old, and she was about to lose her life. These 20 or so incompetent doctors and alchemists were already the third batch today. This kind of situation happened several times a day. Even so, for the past 3 years, the Broken Wave Gang had been pasting notices all over the abandoned city. They had never stopped looking for famous doctors. Therefore, the number of people who had treated his daughter, Duan Ruiying, was no less than 10,000. Not to mention curing her, even if someone could suppress it a little, it would be impossible. A bunch of quacks and incompetent people. Get out of here. The old man don't let me see you in the Tianzi district. The Grand Elder roared. With a wave of his hand, vitality wreaked havoc around his body. His eyes were bloodshot, and he couldn't help but want to kill. Let's go, let's go. The people who walked out of the mansion were so frightened that their faces turned pale. They took their medicine boxes and ran away. It seems like this illness is more than difficult to treat. Qin Hao brushed past the doctors. From the gossip of the crowd, it was enough to tell that the daughter of the Broken Wave Gang was in a very bad condition. However, to Qin Hao, he might just need to wave his hand. Just as he was about to step into the mansion. Get out of here. Chapter 543. As the man spoke, Qin Hao sized him up. The man had a pointy mouth, monkey cheeks, and yellow hair. He looked exactly like a henchman. However, he was wearing the uniform of the Broken Wave faction, with the word "broken" embroidered on his chest. He was obviously a member of the Broken Wave faction. A young man in luxurious clothes walked over. His footsteps were steady, and there was a jade belt around his waist. His eyes were cold, and he looked as if he was the only one in the world, and everyone else was just ants. He spoke to the yellow-haired young man. The man was called Huangpu Daqi. He was the only grandson of the Huangpu family's Grand Elder in Huangpu State. Unlike the Shimen and Dugu families, the Huangpu family was not good at fighting. They were famous in the wasteland for their alchemy. As the grandson of the Grand Elder in the Huangpu family's headquarters, Huangpu Daqi had inherited his grandfather's alchemy skills. He was so good at alchemy that he was better than his peers. He was known as the #1 young alchemist in the wasteland. It was said that he was a disciple of a cabinet elder in the headquarters of Dangu in the Luoshui Empire. His alchemy skills were almost on par with his grandfather, Huangpu Huichun. It would not take long for him to surpass him. The Huangpu family had high hopes for him. Master Daqi, you're finally here. The Grand Elder hurried down the stone steps to greet him. The gloominess on his face was gone, and he was full of hope. It seemed that Duan Ruiying's terminal illness could be cured as soon as Huangpu Daqi arrived. At the request of the Tianya faction master, my grandfather should be here to treat Miss Ruiying. However, he is too busy. I just came back from Luoshui and Dan Go is on vacation for 2 months. Huangpu Daqi said. He was not surprised by the fact that the man was the Grand Elder of the Broken Wave faction. He was calm and composed. Isn't it the same if you or Huangpu Huichun comes? If you can't do anything, no one in the wasteland can save Ruiying. The Grand Elder said sadly. However, he was telling the truth. Huangpu Daqi's ability was not much worse than his grandfather. These words caused Huangpu Daqi's calm face to reveal a trace of joy, and his heart felt exceptionally comfortable. That's right. Daqi overestimated himself and said something. In the wasteland, other than my grandfather, if I say that I'm second in pill refining, no one would dare to say that they're first. As for not being able to save Sister Ruiying? That was absolutely impossible. Great Elder, your complexion doesn't look too good. Do you often have abdominal pain? Especially at night when the pain was the most severe. Also, your appetite has decreased recently? Huangpu Daqi stared at the First Elder and asked curiously. How did young master know? This caused the First Elder to jump up in fright, and he subconsciously covered his abdomen with his hand. What the other party said was true. Qin Hao, who was standing far away, had also noticed it. With a trace of disdain in his eyes, he muttered softly, Not only is the lower abdomen distended, but the Guanyuan acupoint will also leak qi. Not only is your lower abdomen distended, but your Guanyuan acupoint is often out of control, causing vitality to leak out. It's rumored that the First Elder's cultivation hasn't improved at all in the past 10 years. I'm afraid this is the reason. In the next second, Huangpu Daqi immediately put his hands behind his back and smiled faintly. What he said was exactly the same as what Qin Hao said. However, Qin Hao didn't say it in front of him. Master, are you a god? The old demon said in surprise. In this regard, Qin Hao chose to remain silent. Young Master Daqi, to be honest, when the old man was fighting for Duan Gang in his early years, he was severely injured, so... The First Elder nodded and admitted. At this moment, he had no doubts about Huangpu Daqi's ability. Huangpu Daqi could tell that he was suffering from an old injury at a glance, and this injury had recently flared up. Huangpu Daqi was indeed a cripple. The #1 young alchemist in the wasteland was indeed powerful. He believed that there was no second person in the wasteland who could see through his injury at a glance. To be honest, I can cure your injury, Huangpu Daqi said proudly. Are you serious? The First Elder's eyes widened in shock. If his old injury could be cured, his cultivation would definitely increase. I'm not lying. Huangpu Daqi was full of confidence, but then he said anxiously, After I cure Sister Ruiying's illness, I will cure your old injury. With that, he strode into the house. If young Master Daqi can cure old man's old injury, I am willing to help you put in a good word to the faction leader, and have him pledge allegiance to the Huangpu family. The First Elder bowed deeply at Huangpu Daqi's back. All these years, Duan Gang had never sought help from the Huangpu family to cure his daughter. The other party had a condition, which was that Duan Gang must become a vassal of the Huangpu family. In fact, if Duan Ruiying's illness was not incurable, Duan Gang would never ask for help from the Huangpu family. After all, when Duan Gang was young, he was indebted to the Qin family for a meal. Before he could repay the debt, the Qin family was destroyed. This was also the reason why Duan Gang had remained in the ruined Qin state, unwilling to leave. In front of him, Huangpu Daqi's body trembled visibly. He was ecstatic. Today, he was here to make Duan Gang pledge allegiance to him. It seemed like this was going to be a success. When he returned, he would definitely be praised by his grandfather and the patriarch. However, on the surface, Huangpu Daqi's expression did not change. Chapter 544. At this moment, time seemed to have frozen. The onlookers at the door all looked at Qin Hao in shock, breaking out in cold sweat for him. He might not be able to save Ru Ying? This was a slap to Huangpu Daqi's face, his grandfather Huangpu Grand Elder, and the whole Huangpu family's face. Good, very good. Huangpu Daqi clenched his teeth and stared at Qin Hao. Anger, rage, all kinds of expressions were changing on his face. Finally, it turned into a cold sneer. Then I'll give you a chance to observe this young master's technique. Grand Elder Lifeng, let this kid in and let him know the difference between us. Let him know that he can only look up to me for the rest of his life. After that, he waved his sleeves and walked into the mansion angrily. How dare you provoke young Master Daqi? If anything happens to young Master Daqi because of this, I'll make sure you won't live to see the sun tomorrow. Get in here. Grand Elder Lifeng of the Broken Wave faction shouted. Kid, get in here and admire young Master Daqi's skills. Your ancestors must have burned incense to have such a good sight. The yellow-haired henchman snorted and raised his leg to kick Qin Hao. Bang! Qin Hao stomped on the ground and shook up the mysterious crystal. The mysterious crystal flew out like an arrow and hit the yellow-haired man's knee. Immediately, the yellow-haired man screamed and fell to the ground, holding his leg. His face was distorted by the pain and he felt that he had lost all feeling in his leg. Watch your mouth and protect your leg. A henchman is worthless if his leg and teeth are broken. Qin Hao didn't bother to look at him and followed behind Huangpu Daqi. If he hadn't come to ask for the blood Ganoderma, he would have smashed the yellow-haired man into pieces. What a ruthless brat! Just you wait. The yellow-haired man limped up and walked into the mansion. Looking at Qin Hao's back, he clenched his fist. He knew that it was not the right time to attack Qin Hao. Qin Hao hadn't seen Huangpu Daqi's skills yet. But once Huangpu Daqi finished treating Duan Ruing, Qin Hao's nightmare would come. Inner mansion, backyard. Miss Duan's room. There were 2 rows of strong men standing in front of the door. There were 10 people in each row with big swords hanging at their waists. Obviously, they weren't ordinary people. Duan Ruing. Every time a doctor walked out of the veil, the doctors would shake their heads non-stop. The anger in the eyes of the old men from Broken Wave sect burned even more fiercely. They wanted nothing more than to pounce on the doctors and bite them to death. Scram! All of you scram! You're all a bunch of trash. Finally, one of the elders couldn't take it anymore. He started to curse. After he finished, he squatted on the ground and cried. He could feel Duan Ruing's breath getting weaker. She was close to death.